ladies and gentlemen. The Kids in the Room podcast. The Kids in the Room podcast.
That's right. That's right.
Brought to you by Moo Faces TV.
Woo! All right. Hey guys, welcome to the Kids in the Room podcast. Today we have Cindy and David, a couple, and they are awesome. And they're on the actual podcast, and they're going to talk about some finance and make it fun, right? Or maybe boring or fun. I think we're going to make it fun, and we're going to talk about some other things. We're just going to let it go. It's going to be a really fun, free-flowing conversation. All right. So Cindy, David, how you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing great, man. Just getting
a
off.
little jet lag.
Yeah, getting that jet lag going. Getting it. Getting my car. Back. Just getting situated and rushing over here to make sure I capture you guys in our great conversation that we're gonna have today. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit more about you guys. Let's enough about me. Let's do it.
We want to hear all about you. Actually, no, we appreciate you having us on. I mean, I usually, David always says, don't bogart the mic, but sometimes I can't help myself. But, we married 10 years ago. We basically, my story is pretty deep and a little full of turmoil. I met David after coming off I was in a very scary domestic abuse relationship for 16 years. So raised my kids under a lot of fear, a lot of hardship, a lot of financial hardship, physical abuse, mental abuse. So, it's digging out of that was a hardship within itself. And then met David a few years later. And as luck would have it, we were both I'm in the wealth management industry, finance. I came out of my relationship bankrupt, homeless. I lost a car, I lost a house, I lost a boat. I mean, literally, I had nothing. I met David with the negative $1,200 in my pocket, for real. And raising two kids on my own. So that was a hardship within itself. So that's kind of my story, and it's deep and long. But anyway, met David on a date night out with our mutual friend, and ultimately met. And the next day we were talking 3 hours, and the next week we were at Costco together, and the next 5 months we were moving in together, and realized quickly we had a love of finance and a love of life, and a mutual common ground, because I was raising my kids alone and he was a single father alone. So neither of us ever looked to get married again. So we could talk love, money, marriage, anything you want. Ghosts. We have ghosts in our studio. You want to talk about ghosts? We have ghosts.
Yeah, I mean, you guys kind of collaborated almost like a miniature Brady Bunch,
Yeah.
I was going to say, I just looked at Cindy. I'm like, I like this girl. She's broke, bankrupt, beaten, and she has 2 kids. I'm like, I should go for this. This is a really smart move.
Hey,
it sounds like a smart move.
So I was looking at her chest. I got to be honest, but
David,
Oh, man.
on camera.
So we know what David's about. All right, we got it.
Exactly.
We've summed up the
I'm
conversation.
Totally shallow.
Yeah, I'm like, this is great. I'm broke, bankrupt, homeless, but I have huge boobs, and he's in love. So
I heard that's all you need these days. Yeah.
That's about it.
Yes.
So, that's kind of where, David's background, and he can introduce himself, but
David,
in personal finance.
Yeah, David, introduce yourself.
I don't have anything like that as a story, so I can't top that. But I will say, when I met her, though, I pretty much got wiped out from the financial crisis in a lot of ways, because I was in a divorce and I was forced to buy out, and housing prices were down. So I had to refinance by the court from the home. So that just took a big hit on me. And I do remember where I was a contract worker for a long time. So that means you work for like a year, right? It could be like a movie. You're on a movie set for a little while and then you're done, kind of thing. And so I didn't have a contract at the time. And so I had to have verification of employment to be able to get this mortgage pre-approved. And so I basically bought an 800 phone number and had it forwarded to my phone and acted like the HR person at the company I used to work for, just so I could get the loan approved. So that's kind of the spot I was in.
Can you say that legally?
Can I what?
Can you say that legally online? I mean, I don't know.
It's so long ago.
I know.
I don't,
I'm like, I wouldn't tell that story.
they got bigger fish to fry. But yeah. But sometimes you do things when you're stuck in a spot. You find out what you're capable of doing when you're forced in a situation. But yeah, but I had custody of my son. I was like the only guy in the county, I believe, by what they told me.
Yeah.
So it wasn't normal back then for dads to have custody of their children.
Yeah, dads.
That's
don't
even
typically
better
do
than
that.
having a dog by your side, is being a single dad raising it, right?
Honestly, man, that and writing a book, which was about finance, like, boring. But those two things alone, I could look like a doormat. I could get any chick I wanted because they love that. So it worked. Look,
Choose me.
There you go.
because they saw, well, then that's what they think. It's the thing is, life, when you like meet people, maybe girls, whatever, opposite sides, it's like you need one little thing in your toolbox. You need a hook. And if you get a hook, then you can get into conversation. Then it's up to you to make it work. And so that's not what I was doing. It's just like, but those things always got mentioned. But the first thing I guarantee Cindy did was go look me up on Google. Right?
Yeah, and I had negative $1,200 in my pocket, and I'm like, making sure he's not a serial killer, of course, but I see that he wrote a book on personal finance, and I'm like, I am so screwed. But I'm in wealth management, so I know that I have the chops and the history, and that's just life being in the wrong place, in the wrong time, and circumstantial things in life, and it's either living in a situation that you have fear every single day, or you get out and you know that I have to, no matter what it takes, I have to have this trajectory in life that gets me out of danger at whatever cost. So, mine was not any responsibility. I'm in wealth management. It was circumstance, and you don't see clearly when you're in that situation on your own. So you see things different. So, he's then like, oh, you're a stockbroker and you're in finance, but I'm completely broke. I couldn't, money only goes so far, but I've learned different since then. So, in the last 10 years, we've built wealth, we teach wealth, we educate on it. And that's what we love to do. So that's why, we have a blast in life. So everything we do is for fun and future.
Right. So walk me through this. There's something I'm looking to connect, because you had negative $1,200 some odd dollars, correct?
Yep.
And
yeah,
it's like
for real.
before you met
For
David
real.
and et cetera. And how are you doing wealth management? And if you were negative 12, like how did this?
No, and I think it's an amazing question, and I always often look back and think, I tell this story out loud for a reason, because you're in a situation that you're so clouded by life, you can't see straight. So I go to work, and I'm, at the time I was in the support side of things, so I wasn't making a lot of money back then. And then, I had an ex-husband who basically bankrupted me, and it was the financial crisis. So I lost my home through that time. So that's the dichotomy, exactly what you're asking. But what I realized and didn't see is through that time, I'm trying to buy my kids love through food and fun and the things that I wasn't prioritizing and practicing what I preach on the budget side. But that's the difference.
Wow.
Stock market and wealth management is very different than running your home and being your own personal CFO to run a budget and manage that side of things. And again, that was just truly my life and my turmoil getting in the way of seeing clearly. So I can't describe the feeling of being a single mother on a very limited salary with no help. Oh, and paying alimony to the person that was nearly beating you, or threatening your life on a regular basis. So it's embarrassing, but I think it's important the reason I talk about it is because people find themselves in precarious situations all the time.
Right.
If I can be a relatable person to any woman in that situation, or man for that matter, then it makes me real, and it makes me understand, like, I can say I know what you're going through, and it doesn't have to be that way. And meeting David, and when we collaborated, he was the budget man.
Mm-hmm.
We came together and had some eye-opening conversations. And that's the thing about being honest going into your life and your relationships, and really facing things head on and understanding maybe it's the circumstance.
Right. So David, like, what's your take on all this? I mean, you like, what was your situation looking like at that time priorly, before you guys connected?
It's interesting. So I had still had my house, had my son, but I'm like, well, I'm gonna go back to school and get another degree because it'll make me more money. So I wasn't working. So then I went to my brother's house for 4.5, 5 months and brought my son there and stayed at his house. I was 40 years old, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to be a hot date. At my brother's house at 40 and going to yoga classes. That was about all I was doing. But I hated it. So I got my master's in 13 months because I hate school, and B, I'm like, I'm not doing this any longer than I have to. And then so I kind of re-entered the market, and I picked up one job to the next and just started building my path again, and every time I go to the next place I make more money, and just identifying what I wanted to do. So I will tell you this, but I've always been good with money. So me writing a book 15 years ago, the book's called I'm Not Flipping Burgers When I'm 70, ironically, was to make sure that I don't want to be doing this stuff later in life. And that saved me in a spot where I wasn't making the money. I was able to draw off what I had in the past, even with unfortunate things happen. And so when I met Cindy, I was nowhere near what I was, but I wasn't in her spot. And that's because I was able to, again, manage my money and know how to do things properly and be resourceful. And so, with her and I together now, like when I put it this way, when I sat down with them, like, get out your bank account. Like, let's see your statements for the last 6 months and see what you're spending your money on. And then everything starts opening up and realizing usually it's food, what people spend the most money on. That's what they wasted on. Dining out. Now today, DoorDashes of the world, food delivery, groceries, eating out, just going to the restaurant. It all adds up. And, the Paneras of the world and the Starbucks, and that just starts killing people. And Cindy was realizing that she, was buying her kids love because she was in such a bad spot. She wanted the minimal thing of, hey, can we stop at Subway on the way home just to make them feel good for a few minutes, is what she was doing. So once we started doing that together, I just said, listen, my money is your money, and we're going to figure this out.
This is great. Wait, I was only attracted to him for his Costco card, man. I'm like, I can go on a first date. We met at Costco a week later after we met. I'm like, I can get some bulk toilet paper out of this dude. I'm good.
I was like, this is going to be an easy score.
Yeah.
If Costco card is all it takes, I'm in, man.
You were sold. It was easy after that. Yeah.
But I will tell you that, once we started there, then I think the other thing we did really well was I said, listen, you're a woman. You're getting more respected in your field, and women still are never completely taken care of equally to a man. I think it's 78 cents on a dollar to a man. But I'm like, you have all these skills. You have this. She has this cred in the world that, in her world anyway, that most people don't achieve, man or woman. And I'm like, you're not realizing your full potential. So you need to go out and make more money. If you're going to work every day and work your ass off, go make some money. And so she went through management and got her ass kicked for good 2.5 years, but built up to like managing, I don't know how many branches and 80 people. And then she got to a point where she couldn't get any farther. They weren't taking care of her. So she went off on her own and, went with an independent practice. And now she's a CEO of a national recognized wealth management firm. And that's a long or short abridged story. But now today she broke the glass ceiling, and she probably doesn't make double what I do, but she makes more than I do. And it doesn't bother me. So it's funny, like I was carrying the bread for a good 6-7 years, and she just took over, and we didn't realize she would get to where she is today. And now she's carrying the bread in terms of who makes more. And I could give a rat's ass. And I know a lot of men, they don't like that sometimes. It's that I can protect or take care of the women kind of thing. But I'm like, make as much money as you want, because it's all in one basket like we started. And so it's funny how it turned over on the other side. And, we've been very successful because of that, because there's no competition between us. It's like whatever we do for our goals, for what we want to do, it's all just a unit. We set goals all the time. We achieve it. And I can't believe, frankly, there's where we are today from where we were 10 years ago. I'm even actually proud of myself, proud of Cindy, that we are where we are today. Sitting here talking to you is something we could have never imagined. And I think we appreciate being here to be able to actually talk to someone like you about this.
Wow, that's interesting. So, Cindy, what changed? I mean, you were, before that you had some, money issues and things like that. and then you just kind of just like took off and you became the
I
COO.
think,
What happened?
there's, so many things. I would go to work every day, and sometimes I would go to work having just been, spit on or choked at the front door, for real, calling the cops, as I'm walking out the door. And what it allowed me to do is walk in out the door and into my job and never and be somebody that I know I am. So when you're in those abuse situations, that person's telling you you're not good. You're not. People don't like you. People. So I would go to work and I'm like, I'm just gonna kick ass and be the best I can be. And so the what I set for myself of the foundation was always there. The cool thing is about relationships and love and having like the true support of somebody that can back you up and be there for you at all costs is that's it. Like, David might get a big head, but it was meeting David who supported that trajectory that I could go on and really recognize all the talent that I had built as someone that, just worked really hard in the industry. So I never doubted my talent. I never doubted my abilities. It was, the circumstance of life getting in the way. When you have more going out the door than you have coming in, you can only squeeze so much out of it. And then, just recognizing like where I went wrong just in terms of spending my money. Again, this is why we're doing what we did, because when we met, we're like, damn, we have this great unit that you're on that side and I'm on this side. Let's just take this and run with it. So that's why we started that podcast, just to run with helping people that have in all situations. We have wealth and I had no wealth. And so and my ex-husband inherited $1 million at one point. When we divorced, he was homeless. So seeing the ride of wealth and it's an interesting study of money and wealth and habits.
Wait,
It's
back
crazy
that up
to
for a
me.
second. Wait, your
Yes.
ex-husband, the one who was, you
Yes.
physical,
Yes.
etc.,
hmm
was homeless after your relationship, and
He
then he
was
became a
homeless.
millionaire, or he was priorly he was a
He
millionaire.
became a millionaire prior, inherited a lot of money at one point. It wasn't mine. I kept away from it. And basically his money, um, he blew it. He wasn't working. So like at the end of the day, he was home and just spending and spending and spending. And I was like, and I'm in the market. So he had a buy high, sell low theory. He margined himself to death and ended up having no money. So when we divorced and I was escaping life, he had no money. Ended up, because was making more. I ended up paying for him to live for 2 years and 2 months on alimony, which was crazy. So money
Wow.
is great and money is evil.
So wait a minute. I just want to dig back into that again. You're saying basically that he basically mismanaged this $1 million that he inherited.
Yes.
I mean, taxes.
Yes.
Like, what was it after taxes? Did he get a full $1 million? I mean,
Oh, he got a little over $1 million. Yeah.
and he blew it all on what?
Cars, going to Vegas, music equipment. I mean, literally, just you name it. Thinking that he was wealthy, but he wasn't working. And that's the whole irony of money, is that when you inherit money or inherit wealth or build wealth, unless you manage it, it goes fast. It
Yeah.
goes really fast.
Yeah, especially if
So-
he didn't buy property, no house or nothing like that. He didn't have any assets. Everything
No.
was just burn, burn, burn.
Everything was just material. It was very material. So that's the other side of money is, if you don't understand the value of it, and you think look, that's why a lot of, if you ever seen the 30 for 30 and the pro sports guys that go broke and they're bankrupt, and it's because when you have all this money flow, it's very easy to say, well, I have $1 million. If I spend $10,000, so what? I still have, $990,000 left out of that. It doesn't work like that. You spend 10 and then you spend 10 and you spend 10. If you're not replenishing that, and spending more than you're making on it, it's gone really quickly. So he
Well,
learned the hard way.
yeah, I think 80% of all NBA players go bankrupt within 3 years,
Right.
and 60% of NFL athletes within 5. And that may have changed. That was an article back maybe 10 years ago, but they started, surfacing on that. But here's the other thing. You should explain this to him, Cindy, or to the audience. But he was buying on margin, and this is what a lot of people do
Yeah.
today with crypto and the meme stocks and the short selling. And the short selling is a whole topic on its own. But he was doing a lot of margin calls, and they came due. You want to explain that real quick so everybody understands that?
You're basically borrowing against yourself. And so that was through the .com bubble. So everybody was getting caught up in that and borrowing against their securities to buy more securities, which is completely allowable. But if that stock goes down or that market goes down, you're in trouble because then you owe that money. So then you have to sell off 33 and a third times that, and then you're selling at these crazy drop lows. So a lot of people got in trouble through the .com bubble because it was the exuberance of people watching their money go up and go up, and I got to get in and I got to buy. I don't care what the consequences, just buy it. And then the ceiling or the floor dropped out.
So basically, you borrow against the stock you have in your portfolio, and while you're paying interest at a high rate, and then if the stock doesn't do well, the margin call comes due, and they wipe out all of your holdings. So that's what he did. So he got wiped out, and a lot of his money by in margin.
Wow. So he was actually trying to invest his money. It just was bad management.
I guess you could say that.
You know what there is one irony to this. There's only one good thing that came out of this for Cindy was that she racked up all these capital losses on taxes. So they're called carry forward. And I won't say what the number was, but it had zeros. And so basically, if we play options is one of the things we like to do. And so you can make a lot and lose a lot. But we did really well last year, for example. So we knew we were going to have a tax bill, but we were able to take all this carry forward, these thousands of dollars that he had racked up because he never filed taxes. So Cindy was able to hold those negative losses. So this, for example, let's say we made $100,000 on selling Apple. Well, she's got a negative $100,000 in capital losses from the past. You can balance that out. So basically to the government, to the IRS, you'd owe zero. That's the 100 gain, and then you offset it with the negative 100 loss. So a lot of these losses he racked up, we were at least able to use that she was able to hold on in the past to help us out. So that was one good thing. But you never want to see that happen to somebody, but at least she got something out of it in the end.
Right, totally. That's cool. So basically what you're doing is you guys evened it out. The past losses like you would do like with a business or something like that. If you had a loss within the business, you can kind of cover that up with the taxes that you may normally owe, per se, for example.
You carry it forward, exactly.
But you carry it forward further on,
Yeah, that's kind of the long and short of it, so quite the ride through a number of years.
Definitely amazing. So how are you guys helping people out now with taxes? Like, how are you doing that? How are you
facilitating? Oh, we don't do taxes. So
finance.
That's
finance.
the one.
Sorry, finance.
Yeah, finance. Yeah.
Well, our podcast is called Something on My Mind. I don't think we've said that. I'm able to say it at the end, but we basically pair together everything I knew from budgeting and just everyday management of money to the well side of Cindy. And then she'll probably tell you, I know more about the economy than she does or the stock market, even though, she focuses on certain things. Yeah. See, look at that face. Just general jargon. Listen, the point is we meet in the middle, and she knows things about trusts and all kinds of other things that I don't get involved in. She's very well versed on these, she handles all types of money management because she's dealing with people who have money on the higher side, and that it requires, or they get into more vehicles, financial vehicles or options or way to move your money around than somebody who I would sit down with and just say, let me start with your budget and manage your money. So what I do is basically say, hey, I'm going to get yourself right so you can actually pay your bills, and then also build out things like a rainy day fund, an emergency fund, some savings, and then you have to have a component to put away into your investment of some sort. It could be an IRA or a employer-sponsored plan or whatever it would be. You got to build that in there like a bill with all this package in a budget. And then I get them going. It's like financial management, but on a almost psychological way. And so, and then we get into more complex things like we've been talking about. We've talked about crypto and meme stocks and trusts and wills, and there's pretty much anything we can't cover. So when on our show, we'll take a topic and we'll break it down pretty deeply, so a way that it's simple to understand. So we don't just read off a cue card and say, do this, do that. We actually have a discussion. So we talk about people that we've ran into or experiences or clients. We don't name anybody, and then we always do a nice little recap. But the point is, we find that we break it down in a way that it's just, again, easy to understand. They feel like they're engaged. They're learning something. And that's where we thought the two pieces of Cindy and I together married up pretty well. So that's why we can get on a show and pretty much don't even need a script. We can just pull a topic, unless we read stats. We can just go. And that's why what's just cool about what we're doing now, we're much better at our craft because we sucked at first. That we like that we can just get any question asked or any topic and we can just do it. And I think that comes back with the listenership, that with the comments we get, that we're helping them out and they're doing something to improve their lives.
Right.
I'd much rather talk about aliens.
There you go. Aliens and finance. How do the aliens mess up our finance? I don't know. I don't know. I think this is interesting, but like when you guys are teaching, like what are the common issues? Because you did mention, David, about a lot of athletes and stuff like that going broke and stuff like that. What do you feel a lot of bad practices that that they kind of do in general that push them in a way to where their finances pretty much dwindle away?
Well, I would think that first off, there's not really formal education for finance just in the school system. So if your parents aren't good with money, which, put it this way, 3/4 of all people live paycheck to paycheck, pretty much even at 65 years of age, when you can get Medicare, which is 80% of your medical bill, which is a big deal, and you can take Social Security at 62. So if you're living that way, you're either getting forced out because you're too old or you have a health problem. And at that point in time, if you're still working paycheck to paycheck, you're pretty much aren't going to be able to live the way you want. So here's the basic rule. Whatever you're living at, you need 80% of that income when you go into retirement. If you want to choose to work part-time, that's up to you. But if you just said, I am going to retire today, if you're used to making $100,000 worth of bills, then you need 80 in retirement. So that's in a shorter bridge version, that's what you need to do when you want to retire. But the problem with people is they get FOMO. They want to keep up with the Joneses. It's called the lifestyle creep, in other words. And so, for example, if you pull up, like I wrote this in my book, and we brought this up recently. If you pull up next to somebody and someone's driving a 12-year-old car and someone's driving a new Mercedes, your first thought is that person has money. And more often than not, you would realize that's not necessarily true. A lot of people who display wealth or live in houses and have all the toys, a high percentage of them really don't have the money that you think that they do. It's just a show. And so then you can get away with spending your money and having all those toys. And even if you paid every single bill but didn't put your money away, when you hit these years when you have to retire you're still screwed. You have to have money along the way. But if you don't have any education as you go through, it doesn't matter how much money you make. It really doesn't. So, and especially a lot of the athletes, I don't know, the percentage come from inner cities, and usually they don't get any education. Some of them don't even go to school. They don't have mentors in the ways that help them out. And that's kind of why we do what we're doing. But even outside of that, most people just don't have education. So people want what they want. And our society is built to say, here, you can buy something now and pay for it later. And you just keep getting by and doing what you want to do, because it just takes one friend or somebody that or somebody on social media that's doing something cool, and you get a perception that you like to be like that. So you're going to spend and not think about, kicking the can down the road for your future. And so it's really important.
I think too, with athletes, I was going to say with the athletes, they're trusting people with their money. So there's a good amount of people that if they turn that money over and they're not educating themselves or staying up and staying in the mix, there's people that get paid to manage their money. And I think that that's another problematic thing in that system, is if they're not keeping an eye on it and somebody else is managing it, that can that can be very mismanaged. So I think it's twofold: the lack of education and then the mismanagement, or even handing over the management and not staying on top of it. And you're like, well, I want the whatever, the dom at the bar. Well, that's only going to last so long.
Right.
Yeah, I just read an article with Patrick Mahomes, right? And it was about he's investing in other businesses, and he's what 25, and he's already he said, hey, I've made some losses, but I'm learning. But when you have that kind of money, you have the ability to have access to a lot of people to reach out to get a proper mentor, and it doesn't have to be your buddies, and you can't worry about your posse. You got to worry about yourself. And that's you really almost need an outside influence, but somebody that's trusted. But if you ask around enough, even if you're not an athlete, if you find somebody you trust and to give you information about what you need, if you dig around enough, you can find the right mentors or the right business people that can help you along to manage your money, because the information's there, but you have to seek it out. But you can't be lazy about it. You can't just go grab your buddy who said, I did this thing and I'm going to go, all right, that sounds great. It's like you really need to just take your time, but anybody can achieve it. That's the one good thing. Everybody can attain it.
Right. So what you guys are saying is, like, for example, or better yet, let me say this. Okay, I'm Joe Smo. I'm a basketball player. Probably not tall enough, but I'm a basketball player, and I have a bunch of money. What would you guys typically recommend someone to do, or like me? Yeah. I'm the baller.
I mean, you know what? I would say the same thing to everybody is you have to determine what you need now, what you don't need for 2 to 5 years, and what you don't need for 5 years or more, and really base your life and your goal. Like, you have to pick goals. It's really all investing is what you want out of life. So if you want those fancy cars and that fancy house, then you have to figure out a way to attain it and maintain it. And so the whole thing is predicated on what's your lifestyle and what does it cost you to live. So that's what I would ask you. What does it cost you to live? What is your monthly goal and your annual goal, and what do you want 10 years from now or 15 years from now? So it's not it's basically not a cookie cutter answer. It really is, like, we live very well, but we don't live in a huge house. I don't drive a great car. I choose to drive a moderately nice car. David drives a nice car. It's not important to me. I want to travel. I don't buy a lot of clothes. I don't care. It's, if I go show up to work in the same thing 5 days in a row, I don't care. I really don't. I'm dressed. I'm not naked. That's how I feel. So, my priorities are going to be totally different than yours. So as a basketball player, you probably want like a nice, like, hoop yard in the back for your kids to play in. Let's build that out, right? But otherwise, you have to just determine like exactly what you want out of life, and that's how you invest. I just believe in the safety and the long-term investing, and we don't take a lot of risk. So I don't want to be construed as giving you advice, because I don't I don't want to mislead you in any way. It's just really based on your goals and
But
your
it is fair to
lifestyle.
say that if you're an athlete, you have a short career span, and I would imagine once you play in the league for 3 years, I think most football players don't even make it 3 years. But let's say you have a chance to be in the league for a while, then you might get a gauge of what kind of money you're going to make, maybe based on a contract. But that's if you even make it to 30, you're doing great. So, okay, well, I got to look in the future, like Cindy's saying, where's my other money going to come from? Or if I'm going to live off this money, then I really got to invest a good chunk of it, because I need a lot of years to live off that nest egg. And that would be an example of, all right, well, I got to look, that's my 10 years, maybe Cindy's talking about, or the 5 years. And then now if you're like somebody who just works and brings a paycheck in every week, then you got to look at your career and say, well, do I have a chance to make more money? You pretty much know these things unless you go out on your own, what you're going to have in your nest egg, or to work with rather. And so, like Cindy said, if I'm working every week, then I got to, the standard person to the layman's person, you need about 10 to 15% of your gross income each month to put it into investments. And you shouldn't stop there. If you can increase it every year with a bonus or a raise or some other form of income to keep building it up. That's what you should do for the normal person. For the athletes, you got to look a little bit deeper and probably invest a lot more than you would like with that big chunk of dollars coming in, because if you don't know what your next move is. So we'd also say you need to look at your career planning down the road and have backups like education, or get into some other type of other income streams down the road, so you're prepped when if your knee blows out, what are you going to do? And if you spend your money, you don't have anything to do to draw off of at that point, you're going to be in real trouble.
That's interesting. I wonder why, like, for me, and maybe it's me. When I was a kid, my stepfather used to always say, "Oh yeah, you can squeeze a a nickel out of a
Right.
out of a dollar," and I'd be like, "Yeah, I guess I can. I don't know why, but
Yeah.
I watched a lot of that Scrooge cartoon. But but I feel like it seems obvious to me. Maybe it seems obvious to me,
Yeah.
but maybe not to others. But it's like, for example, if you have $1 million, right, and let's say that's your lifespan of your contract, for example, we know most people are probably getting way more than that. But let's say if you have $1 million, that's only $1 million. So I would look at it as like, hey, look, what do I want to? And I would probably say ignorantly, what do I want to throw away, and what do I want to keep?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I look at my throwaway as just I don't really care about where this is going. Maybe it's
Yeah.
just foolish, but I would say maybe 10 to 20%. Maybe I want to throw away that, and to me that'd be my limit. The rest,
Right.
I would think about what do I need to keep in order to stay on top, or how I can invest it strategically and diverse my portfolio in order to make sure if one fails, the other one still has some type of ground. But not going on, and then also building yourself and establishing yourself as a brand, right? There's a lot of power into branding yourself, because with that, you always can profit, right? You
Yeah,
got guys
absolutely.
like Trump, who I consider a brand. I don't consider him just a
Yeah.
person who manages or knows money and has a family of history money, but he also is a brand. So anything he does, he can go bottom broke,
Yeah.
lose all his money, but he's a brand. He can easily go make that money again and be wealthy again.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of how I look at it. But like,
No, I think you're spot on. I mean, I think that's exactly right. And that's what we do. We determine our throwaway. We were at the casino over the weekend. I threw a lot away to the casino slot machine. But at the end of the day, I think you're spot on. Just being diversified, being, aware of your money and aware of how long you need that money to last. I mean, it really truly is predicated on what your lifestyle is. So you want your $1 million to last, you have to understand that you have to supplement it or take less than what you're earning to continue to allow that to reinvest to grow. So
Well, here's the other thing: is people are living longer now. So the average age in this U.S. in
Yeah.
the United States is about 81 right now, and you got a lot of these kids trying to retire at 30 and 40 with being completely frugal in the FIRE movement, for example. And we don't subscribe to that so much because
you said the what
you have to
movement?
live.
What was that again?
It's called
The
the
FIRE
FIRE
movement.
movement.
Fire?
Basically,
it's financial independence, retire early. So there was two guys that started this
Fire
movement.
I like that. Okay. Yeah.
Right? Financial independence, retire early. But what you don't
So
realize,
FIR.
Huh?
what?
The acronym
Yeah,
is FIR? Okay.
FIRE, FIRE.
Oh, no, it's
Yeah.
4E. What's the E stand? Oh, financial
Independence, retire
retirement
early.
early. Liking this
Yeah.
acronym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Hey.
the concept is they pay all their debt down and they try to save $1 million by the time they're usually 30, 35, 40, which is almost impossible to do, to be honest. But if you get there, then they live completely frugal. So they can't go out and do the things that you and I would do. And then they don't have money put away in case you get sick or something majorly happens to your house, or major financial things. Your kid wants to get married and you need to pay for a wedding. Like, it doesn't really account for all that kind of stuff. But at least you pay down your debt and you're good with your money. The point is, if you're good with your money, then once you start learning how to manage your money, like these guys, these athletes, then it gets back to the education. If they get involved, the more that they study, the more that they ask questions, the more that I never see it in my side of life of anybody I've ever sat down with where they actually did follow a plan and turn around and go to the dark side. You just don't. It's almost a guarantee. So once you get there, it's cool. And the difference, like you mentioned, Veras, was these people like Trump or these athletes, they already have a built-in platform. They have something that we don't. We have to build our brands from scratch. They have they're enough, even on it could be a tight end on the 15th ranked tight end in the NFL. When he starts speaking up, like, who's that guy? Well, he plays for Tampa Bay. And it's like, he has something he can start getting involved with to make his brand already during that short time, which is an advantage. And if you said, if you can do that, then the people are going to want to listen to you. And eventually if he starts asking questions and meeting the right people, he might be able to do something with his money.
Right, totally. I
Who told
mean,
you
you've got.
finance is boring?
Oh, what was that? Oh no, this is
I said,
fun.
who
This
told
is
you finance is
this
boring?
is amazing. No, this is real life. I think finance is exciting. I think it's amazing. I think everybody intuitively wants to know about financing because finance is how you survive. It's how you live. This is
But
reality.
our next podcast, I'm doing the study of money, like basically the journey of money right now, and it interests me to see like the generational wealth and how each thing affects each generation. So like millennials right now, they're sitting on a shit ton of inheritance about to be had. That is the millennial generation is going to be the richest generation in across the span because
Well,
all
for
these
inherited
baby
wealth,
boomers
for
for inherited wealth, right?
Yes.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You have all these baby boomers that are, had kids throughout that time and basically they came off all these, different historical moments and times. So, the study of generations is actually a really interesting study if you ever want to go do it, and why millennials get a bad rap and why millennials want to go out and be entrepreneurial. And I mean, we know, our kids are right in that vote. And my son actually just quit his job, a finance job, and he is now producing rap videos and he's making a name for himself. And he took a chance at 25 years old. We were filming a rap video in our house over the weekend, which was cool. And I'm watching him and, going from a finance job into being a producer and a director and really owning that and knowing that he's going to sacrifice right now, but he's going to hopefully skyrocket with his reputation and what he's building out. So
Wait, so he's a rapper right now, or he's a producer?
he actually is a rapper. He has some real, my son is a very, very, he goes by Trappist, Trappas on Instagram. So he has some really nice tracks that he's laid down, and now he's actually directing, filming, producing, editing. He started a production company to film all videos, but his primary target right now is just because he has a friend who's a rapper, and so he's getting referrals. But point being, like, he took a chance, and that's where the millennials, I think, just get such a bad rap.
And where are you saying, like what area are you guys in doing this stuff? Like,
we're in Detroit.
Detroit. Okay, cool. Yeah.
We're in the Detroit suburbs.
Awesome.
So, it's cool to see that part of wealth and management and understanding, like, okay, I want more and I want to build more and I want to do this.
But here's the thing. He got education by,
and I want to work for myself.
I think the audio got a little garbled. I was just saying he worked at Cindy's company for about 5 years through high school or college, and then he was, graduated, worked for a couple of years, but he got education and understanding of how to do business type of activities and a little bit about money, of course. And then he realized, like Cindy's saying, I want to go out and follow what I want to do. And that's one piece we haven't talked about yet is you got to really enjoy what you do, because if you believe in your brand, yourself, or what you want to do, you're going to have a better chance of succeeding. And so we love it. The fact that he decided to stop at 25 and do it. And I'm like, listen, you can always go back in the field if this fails. Like, go for it, man. Like, do it now before you're like start knocking babies out and getting married and getting a house and all that. Like, this is a great chance to just go see what you can do. And that's a big deal. That's also a big deal. You got to believe in yourself. You're probably not going to be that successful.
No, totally. And I agree with you totally. I think I think a lot of things happen differently at different generations. And I think now there's the internet that's pretty much taken over. So a lot of, younger kids can just absorb so much information and learn how to get residual income. And, there's the YouTube, there's the internet in general where people are profitable. People are making a living, better livings than we did when we were like kids and stuff like that. And it's like, it's a total different world. And it's like, you can kind of set yourself up for success. I mean, some things I always say is like, there are jobs where you can make a lot of money if that you can get in this world, a lot of technology jobs and things like that. I mean, you can set yourself up with, 6 figures easily and do that for like about 10 years or first 5 years, just save up, maybe stay with your family, your parents, or stuff like that.
Exactly.
Put that money into, a sort of amount of investments that seem like something that's strategic or safe enough for you, but then some that aren't safe. And you might be luck up at 30 and be very wealthy. And then, you know what? You have as much money as you pretty much want. You might have some residual income going on. And, that trade or whatever you might have learned earlier might actually be really helpful. I mean, I think you can retire younger in this day and age if you do it strategically. I think you can do it.
If you do it strategically and you truly do understand how it works for the future. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, we don't, I wouldn't do it because I want more than that in the bank by the time I retire. I really want to go out in style and have a lot of money and, get on a plane and go nowhere and figure out, throw a dart at the map. And that's where I want to be. And I want to be able to afford that. But yeah, I think you hit on it, is that if you create this wealth and this platform for yourself, and understand it, truly understand it, and have the right people surrounding you to help you manage that, you can do it. It's basically, the earlier that you save, you're going to be, if you save $100 a month, we just did this illustration just by pure compound interest.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be, if you start at 20 or 25 or 22 or whatever, start saving $50 to $100 a month. Go do a compound interest calculator and see how that turns out for you. You're going to be pretty happy at the result. So,
Well, let me add on to that. So basically, yeah, we just did this episode. We're talking about basically if you followed the S&P 500, and annualized return since 1926 is 10%. Now you got to be there over time because some years go up, some years go down. But by the math, by the history, it's 10% gain, which is, so when people are messing around with the crypto and the meme stocks and the options and the short selling and whatever coin they want to buy, you really don't have to do all of that. So if you take, I believe, if you put money in for $300 a month for 40 years, you'll have about $1 million. If you put $500 a month away for 35 years at that 10%, you'll have $2.65 million. So if you wanted to retire early and can live off some money and then let some other money grow, like that's what Cindy and I are set up for. We have money that we can withdraw from that's already after tax. We only pay taxes on our gains. We have all that money to draw from. All the stuff that's in a 401k or IRAs or things we can't touch, basically that continues to grow while we can draw off the other money if we need it. And so that way you can have a little bit of both. You draw off your cash pool, if you will, and then you let the other investments grow. And if you can leave it in over time, like we just mentioned, the money, and this is the most simplest way to invest, and no one seems to know about it. But if you really do it, you can do both.
Wow. I mean, I think it's like, there's some things that you guys mentioned too as well. And there's some things that I've also thought about as well, is like when you're doing this, it's like, I think earlier we were talking about, how hard it may be to save up this amount of money and how to be, financially free by a such and such age, around 30 per se, or 35. But it's like, really, if you think about it, let's say, for example, and I'm just using an example, let's say if you want to be an engineer, right? You can probably learn it from YouTube. You can't learn it from YouTube. You can learn from books. And you want to be an engineer, you can spend about a year or so, or even a boot camp and get that. You can roughly make around 6 figures. If you live with your parents, they let you hang around during your so-called time that would have been your normal college years, which is roughly 4 years. Now you don't own any college. You're an engineer. You have 4 years living with your parents. Maybe your parents don't charge you much for rent, or maybe they just let you stay there for free because they want to help you be financially independent. Now you've got roughly about, let's say about $400,000 within that 4 years, roughly. Of course, you're going to buy something. Maybe you might buy, kids, they want to buy a Tesla, that take $50K out of that one. Other than that, little food here and there, maybe a couple of trips and vacations and things like that. But if you teach them to be really resilient and smart, maybe they open up a side business where they can start doing some, side projects for development or code and stuff like that. And now they're writing that off, when they're doing those trips, and maybe they're having some meetings and things like that. So now a lot of those trips and meetings become deductible, right, from their actual, fun times as well. So now they've, gotten to a point to where they've had fun still. They haven't been sitting at the house all the time. They've got a good solid amount of money at 4 years roughly. And they keep on doing that. And maybe diversify their, portfolio to where they're investing in different things. Maybe crypto's not so bad, because I'm going to be honest with you. I had 4 guys that were working for me, roughly 5 that were working for me, and they did something really strategic. 5 Russians that strategically, when I was paying them to be a part of the company of my startup at the time, they took that money and they invested that money into crypto. Mm-hmm. And then they also didn't stop there. They also invested into crypto farming. So they created farms as well. Mm-hmm. And so that thing blew up about two years of some odd of number, and it just blew up. And they became very wealthy off of that. and that made them all millionaires. And then, but they didn't stop there.
Yeah.
They still started, other little companies and other little startups, and they got those profiting too as well with that money. But they were good after that. So now they're just living. They're strategic, but they're smart.
living life. Yeah, no, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, you just mentioned a key thing though, which is kind of inherently what we're talking about. Is they build up some money. And they have options. You have options to do things. If you don't have money, you can't do anything. So
Bingo.
If you're disciplined, your scenario is great. Most people won't do that, but if they did, they could. Some form of it they could do, but yeah. So when you have money, it becomes infectious, by the way. You start building a nest egg and a castle, you want to put a drawbridge and a moat so nobody can get to it. That's how you feel about it. And so they were able to take some of their money. They didn't invest everything they had, I assume.
Nope.
And they hit
Half
on
of
the
it.
slot machine.
Yeah, they put half of it. They put half of it there, and then they didn't cash all of it out. They kept half of it in there, and then the other half they took out and cashed. So it just kept on doubling. So it was really strategic. I mean, and now they all have, well, except for one, now they all have like a kid and a wife, and now they're bringing them over to different countries, and making sure the kids are born there, so they don't want to grow up in Russia, for whatever reason it may be. But it's very strategic. But a lot of kids, I feel like these days, even if you give them some of these plans and these strategies to get them on top, a lot of people are like, well, hey, I'm too young right now, and I want to just like live life and try some stuff that I wouldn't be able to do because when I'm older, I have to really work. And they have this type of strategy. But my thing is like, well, no, I think that's all wrong in a sense. I mean, I'm not against you trying and exploring the world, but like, what about if there's a for sure strategy to get yourself to some sense of wealth, or even for 4 years, you just buckle down and, you save up $400K roughly, right? That's buying power. You can do something with that money. You don't have to rush on your career.
I think that you sound like you know what the hell you're doing.
I have some strategic thoughts in my head.
Yeah, I think that, you definitely know. You understand it.
I think the stat we've read is 52% of people between 18 and 29 still live at home. So if that's over half the population, then they have the opportunity to do what you just said.
And more if they're doing it to 29. I mean,
yeah,
Jesus.
Yeah.
I moved out the house when I was 17.
I mean, look, I mean, David might not agree with this, but I told my son, I'm like, our son, but if this is a slow go in your progression on just building out your business, like you're not going to be homeless. Your room got, as soon as he moved out, I redecorated it, made it into a guest room, but you could come back if you needed to make sure that you're doing, I'm really, really trying to promote like his business and his success. You have a home, you can save here, and he's 25 and he saved up enough to cover himself for the next year and that's what his goal was. He's like, I'm not going to quit until I have a year's worth of rent. And so, I can only appreciate that. And having a couple cool rappers in your house on the weekend, I'm like, I was at the grocery store and I'm like buying champagne and, snacks and all this. And I come home and I'm like, do you want a mimosa? And they're like, who is this lady? But I saw a friend of mine, David's wincing. I saw a friend of mine and he's like, I had like a whole cart worth of alcohol and it was like 10:30 in the morning. And on a Sunday, and he's like, well, I'm going to come to your house. And I'm like, no, this is for my new rap friends, And they're like, wow, we really like shooting videos at your mom's house because she got a whole plate of food and champagne for us 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah, but what's wrong? I mean, I guess my point is like, you can tell people this, and a lot of people like, they just don't really fathom it. They want to just like, oh, I want to explore. I want to figure out what I want to do. I want to find myself. I'm young. I have so much time. When I'm older, I have to work for good. So why do I want to do anything serious or really work really hard right now? When I'm later in my life, I have to work. Then I will do that. It's actually the backwards way. You should buckle down. Find something scalable for you to make.
Exactly.
Yeah, find something scalable now that you can make a lot of profit from.
Yeah.
You have so much equity or money that you have that you still can, 2 or 3 years, if you didn't want to work hardcore, you can work at McDonald's or something like that, or work seasonal, and you still would have so much money saved up in the bank. And then if you want to do your own business, you have enough runway to explore that. Whereas if you're just knuckle downing and working little odd jobs in the mall or some other random place, you're going to be still broke. And then you're going to be
exactly.
stressed out. You can't travel. You can't do anything. You have no leeway. You don't have any money to invest in your company, but you want to start a company.
See, when if you're at home, the way we would do it is like, listen, you want to go do all that? That's cool. You got to show progress, meaning we're going to make an agreement. We're going to make a plan. And you can't just do what you just said and sit around and go work at McDonald's for, odds and ends. And if you got a plan, put it together, show progress, show attempts, show that you're putting in some good effort. And then you're cool. You can stay here. If you just sit around and get lazy and playing video games and watching movies or whatever it is you do, then that's not going to happen. So that's kind of how when we raise the kids too, we're like, hey, if you make a mistake, it's cool. Just don't keep making the same mistakes. Learn, move on, find something else. Listen, you got our support. And I think with all of our kids, for example, they know that. Like, what did Chase say?
But they're hard workers. They're like ethical and savers and investors.
But we this gets back to education again. We taught them. Yeah. And so you need support. And Chase, Chase, he's and then Haley, the same age because we're blended. They both got out of college the same day, and in their fields of media, it's sometimes you have to hoof it for a while. You don't go and get a job. Maybe they're not visioned if exactly what they're going to do. Like Chase has all these ideas. He's not there yet, so he's got to figure it out. Point being, they're both like, I don't want to come home. So they moved in a house together with one of Chase's buddies, and they're figuring it out. So does he live in high off the hog? Is she? No, but they didn't want to come home, which we thought was great because of the independence. Now then Haley just got an internship actually with the Detroit Lions.
We're moving one home this weekend.
And now she's coming back, but she's got an opportunity because that's what she wants to do. So, okay, that's cool. So we'll figure out the plan of the house. But the point is that you have independence right off the bat shows it that he'd rather be broke than come home. And if he wants to come home, great. So you want kids to have some kind of ideal, some kind of thought process, and that's a great start. Independence right off the bat is the first key, or you won't achieve anything. And that's what we liked about the decisions that they've made. And then, we're not really worried about them. We know that they'll figure it out. But he did say to me, it's unusual to have parents that I can call on the phone and give me education on anything because I didn't know how it was to move in a house and how to fill out this document, or I've been working on my resume, I've been doing this, or we've been investing money for them for years now. For example, like they got this education that we were able to provide, and they, for example, they're coming out of college with no debt, like you said, like they're in a spot now where they have an advantage over other kids. So we're glad that we could provide that. So the whole point is don't blow your opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, don't blow your opportunity. That's a good one. But I think the thing is there's self-awareness, and there's also being humble to be, self-aware, to know that maybe that what you're obviously doing maybe is not so great and that you might need some time to, help. But I feel like, again, there's this generation. It's a generation happening now where it's just like, I want to figure it out, and I just want to explore, and it's like I want to just, I just want to do what I love.
I'm not saying a word.
I want to do what I love. I'm going to do what I'm passionate about. I don't know what I really want to do. I need to explore. So you've got a lot of people in people's heads and ears, and so it's like, who's in your ear? And you are the average of the 5 most people you hang out with the most. So if we know that and we establish that and we believe that, then inherently we know that a lot of times people are going to listen to the people that they hang around with in school, and schools traditionally push people to kind of be, the employee mindset, the JOB, the just over broke, mindset, the 9-to-5er. And there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody needs to, contribute, but there are better ways. But if you're trying to be this person that you're saying you want to retire by 30 and 35, unrealistically, that's not going to happen if you're setting yourself up for failure by not getting on the grind earlier and thinking of things strategically and intelligible. Yep. And what I mean by that as well is like strategic as far as like even just having like a background plan of what you possibly want to do in life, for example, because like we know where the future jobs are going, or you'd want to know where that's going, and you want to evaluate, is what I'm practically learning going to be useful within 5 to 10 years. And I feel like a lot of people do not do that. A lot of kids do not do that now. They don't evaluate, is what I'm going to school for, or what I'm learning on YouTube, is this going to be useful 5 years from now or 10 years from now? Or is it going to be alleviated?
That's such a great point. You have all these influencers and people that are trying to make money just being a YouTube or a TikTok star or a YouTube star. And, eventually you're going to wear out. You're like your little thing that you have, the next person's going to come along and do it just a little bit better. So then what? You've wasted 10 years or 5 years trying to become, and I'm not knocking anybody that's making money at it. I think it's great, but where's that going to get you down the road? Because there's so many people doing this. It's unreal. Like, and I'm like obsessed with TikTok, right? So I lay at night in my bed and David's like, what is that glow coming out of the bedroom? Like, I'm obsessed with it because it's just like, it is amazing what people will watch to get entertainment or make money. And it's just
now we have to do TikToks every day. So now the tables up there. We actually did. We did do this one story about some lady, some girl. She was a pole dancer, but a clean one, I guess, so to speak. But
if there is such a thing,
she was just doing her routines.
If you sanitize it,
TikTok. Huh?
If you sanitize it, I was saying that over to Cindy. She said if that was a clean thing, and I was like, well, if you sanitize it, you got to use that sanitation.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We'll give her some natural spray.
There we go.
Right.
But she basically, it was just like she was doing it for 2 months, and she had, I think, getting an average of 50,000 views on her TikTok, and she was complaining openly how she's not making money on the Creator Fund. She had made like $20, and kind of goes to your example of saying that, like, people also think sometimes they deserve something, but they don't understand what they're doing in terms of, do they really deserve it? Right? Or if you're going to choose to do something like that, you should have done your research maybe before you decided to spend all your time doing it. That's another thing. Of course, Justin and Chase said, because they're producing on the show, so at the same time, and they're like, I knew Justin would get salty about it. It's like, well, she should have went on OnlyFans or Twitch. She chose the wrong platform.
Yeah.
Depends on what you're talented at. Yes, you should choose the right platform where your audience is. If you're.
Well, that's kind of funny because it's like, you didn't do your research. She goes, I just think she's dumb. She didn't do the right research. She'd probably be making all kinds of money right now.
That's true. I mean, you got to do your competitive analysis. You got to figure out how things are in the industry and where you kind of stand and where do you think you might be able to go. At least do that groundwork, that foundation. Then you can strategically place yourself in a better position of success. But at the same time, you do need to sometimes just jump and do it, because sometimes you get out there and you might think that you might not even be, talented enough to do it, or even have the education or the background or the look or whatever it may be. You may think you might not have that. People don't want to watch me. I'm boring. But you never know. You might get out there and people love you, and it might not be obvious at the initial point. Sometimes there's a lot of strategic things that you have to do on the internet. There's a lot of SEO, ASO, and things like that that you might have to incorporate and learn how to hijack technology. Or you could just get lucky. People get lucky. It happens. People do get lucky. I mean, I have a lot of influencer friends and stuff like that around me, and even one girl who worked for me, she's got like 4.5 million followers now on Instagram. She makes millions now. She makes more than I do, and I was originally just hiring her and always training her and doing different things. Now she makes way more than me. Then there was one girl that I met in a parking lot randomly and talked to a couple of years back, and was hanging out with her. Now she blew up on Instagram, and then she married a football player. And the other girl, like I just mentioned too, she's engaged to a model, and like they're both all building, this whole structure together, and they're all doing really good. But then I have another friend who owns like a bunch of gyms for cheerleading, and then there's these guys that he taught since they were kids, and now those kids, 2 of them are like YouTube stars with 2 million followers, and they're making like 30 to 20K a month. Just off these things, and they're strategically smart with their money. They're investing. They're buying houses and renovating them and then flipping them, and then originally throwing 30 and gather an extra additional 30 within a short period of time, and staying in like little small houses and little country towns. But then when they want to go film and stuff like that, they're doing it at their richer friend's house who are a little bit older, who have these luxurious houses, and they're acting like it's theirs, but really they're saving up $2 million easily a year and strategically putting their money in places.
That's impressive.
But see, here's a theme you just mentioned. These people are in your network. So birds of the same feather flock together typically. So if you're around people who are successful, or if you're successful and you're willing to share some knowledge and information, and someone can glean on or glom onto that a little bit, then it starts, building. You built the nucleus, and it starts going out here. So it's not I don't think it's a surprise from everything you just described.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are
That's amazing though.
yeah, these are facts. I think obviously, like I said priorly, you're the average of the 5 most people you hang out with the most. But there is a trigger where you have to believe in yourself and recognize opportunity earlier. Because for me,
Well, and you have to hustle. I mean, this isn't happening by accident for them. I mean, they might be in the right network of people, but you don't get to that point by not working hard.
Yes.
And I mean, like I said, I'm obsessed with the concept of it. I love the human interest side around all of it and who's successful and who's not. And I study for us, like what works, what are people looking at? All we have to do is dance and dance kind of good, but kind of bad. And I think we have our thing, but David caught me dancing, doing yard work. I'll dance at any time, any moment. I just would want to dance my way through life. I'm just telling you that.
Right.
But he caught me doing this yard work, dancing with the rake. And he's like, I'm going to post this. I'm like, oh, hell no, you're not. I mean, I'll restage it, but that's probably what anything beyond money, me dancing with a rake in the yard is probably what would get me like the 200,000 views, the 20,000 views.
I mean, I think that
that's
sounds like a new show though. Dancing with the Rakes.
Dancing with the rake.
Dancing with the Rake. Let's go. You get some awards for that.
Yes, I love
know what?
dancing. So
Do you mind? Maybe can I send this to him so he can see?
no,
it?
absolutely not, dude. What the hell? Do not call me out. But anyway, I totally agree.
Well, yeah, like I just was I was off for work for 3 months, right? And he's like, take some time out so I can go work on the show a little bit. We built a studio. Now we went to full video, and like we're just building out our platform. We're not even trying to make money right now. Fortunately, we don't need to do that. I think we got plans. But the point is, I never realized, for example, how much it took just to do a podcast. And now with the video and the social media and getting on shows and man, I could go on all day. And the scripts, the file management, I mean, YouTube, I can go on all day. And I'm like, okay, this is like, and I used to do all the audio editing and I've gotten to be really good at it now. But I just really found an appreciation for something that maybe this is the kind of work that some younger people are doing that, okay, now I maybe understand their generation a little bit more because you have to work your ass off. Like Cindy said, it's not just going to be handed to you, and you got to realize that you might fail. You got to be okay with failing because you might find something else. You're going to learn something from it, and you might leapfrog into something else if you don't succeed in that platform anyway, whatever your platform is.
Yeah, so I think it's like 2 things. I mean, well, I'll start with one. I think it's one thing, I was originally studying, computer science, and then I was also taking video and photography classes so I can understand things in the film and the digital imaging and things like that, and cinematography, leading lines and all this different type of terminology of when you're actually shooting video and photos and things like that, but then also understand the computer components of how to build, products and technology and where the future is going, because I feel like these things are always going to be something that's going to be around for the future. So needless to say, I understand exactly what you guys are kind of, doing. And of course I did the podcasting thing like that, but I was doing things more on the media side and tech side, for years. And kind of what happened is a lot of those things that I was using, I used to have Move Faces TV, and we should do red carpets and stuff like that with TMZ, MTV, ABC and everything, like big carpets. And it's like those things that I experienced came back to be handy when somebody was just, I kept on getting, hey, why don't you do a podcast? Why don't you do a podcast? Like, no, I don't do podcasts. Like, that's weird. I don't know what that, like, what would I do? Talk to the wall? Like, I don't understand podcasting, and I don't like being in the front of the scene. So, and I don't want to hear myself. So I just want to collect a check.
I get that.
Yeah. So the whole visuals and, watching myself and uploading on YouTube, that was just such an odd thing to me. And I was like, I don't want to get attention. That's weird to me. I'd rather sit behind the scenes. And, it began to be something to where it was just like, I heard it over and over again. I was like, you know what? That does sound kind of fun. And that way I can, let me try it out. But then COVID hit. And then it was like, well, I was looking at places, and I was actually going to have, 2 extra people actually on the podcast itself. But then when COVID hit, it was like, all right, well, you can't go anywhere. So I was going to go back and forth to LA to keep on actually doing the show every 2 weeks and shoot like 4 within that one day. And it turns out, COVID says, you have to be separate. So then I was like, oh, well, there goes that. There goes that.
Right.
There's no
Yeah.
podcast. So I guess I'm not meant to do it. So that's literally how I took it. And then I think later around like towards August of 2020, I started seeing some of these people who were typically doing broadcasting started doing this Zoom stuff. And I was like, well, what's all that? Well, I guess you can kind of do it. So let me try to investigate how that even works. You know, maybe I could still do it. And the people that I actually invited weren't as passionate about it as I felt I was. And I have a big pet peeve on that. I feel like if you're going to recruit any team members and you have an initial idea, they have to be more excited than you are. That's how I do it. If they're not more excited than you are, you're going to need that reassurance of like, hey, man, when are we doing the podcast? Because sometimes you need that motivation.
Yeah.
But if if you got to chase after them, now you're dissipating out energy that you didn't need to actually push out. And it's like, I'm already doing this, and now I've got to do this. I've got to manage you and motivate you. No. And when things go great, it's good to get anybody. Everybody's on board when things start looking great, and they see they start seeing the cha-ching going on. But you know, I got into it, and I understand exactly what you guys are all talking about. But I realized a lot of things that I learned previously came in handy. The video component, so when it came down to choosing the right camera, the settings, the lighting, that's a whole nother thing. Lighting, camera settings is a whole nother thing. Then you also have to have the technical part to be able to hook up all the wiring and the syncing, and then understanding the light, right? White light, 56K. You have to understand how that contributes to the actual, cinematography, and then you visually, and how that, and then color tones and things like that, and color correction. These are total different genres. And then like you had mentioned, David, now we're doing sound engineering, right? So we're doing, what are we looking at? We're being sound techs. I mean, we're being camera and video and audio techs, and then we're also going into the realm where we're also doing, the cinematography as far as like the video, and then we're also doing things like monitoring it, and then we're also doing things with sound. So now we're doing sound engineering, right? And then we're doing like more of the editing of the actual footage, color correction, things like that. So now you've gotten a bunch of different positions involved in it, and then you got social media managing, and now you have to make clips, and then it's just like, how many freaking jobs?
It's work.
And positions.
There's even like even our studio, we have a TV that we hook up, so all four of us, like, so Justin, my son, her stepson, or my vice versa, he produces it, the guy doing the rep videos.
Awesome.
So they're involved with it, right? And so we even have a switcher. So we have 3 cameras, and we can look like a newscast, and then we look on the big screen of the TV over there. And sometimes, if we do like an interview, I got an earbud and she'll have an earbud. We Bluetooth it to talk with the webcam. That's a brand new component we just did. And then we just bought a teleprompter stand to go read off. We do these tips of the week, like once a week. And it's like, that's another component. So it's even when you think you're settled with, I'm cool with equipment. And plus, you know how it goes. Every time you go set the studio up, like we don't move it. And then like, well, something's not working. It's like, all right, what's going on, man? Come on. And then it's like, all right,
everything the wrong way, and then everybody has to rebuild it, right?
I mean,
Cindy,
kind of for what I kind of do is like, I kind of just have things, and I like to create systematic structures, and I like to think of things to scale, and then I want the least amount of clicks as possible to get started. Right. So what I normally do is I reevaluate my process 100 times. I'm always looking like, how can I make it more efficient and scalable? Maybe that's the engineer and the senior product designer for building things for companies and doing startups myself made me always think like this. How can I be more efficient? How can I be more efficient? So like a lot of things that I'm doing now weren't so obvious priorly. I was using the Zoom. Zoom video quality was also crap. So you have to have a tech head to understand what is the quality you need to be. And then the audio coming from Zoom is crap. Right? So you're not all in the same place. Excuse me for saying a lot of crap, but this is the reality of things. So I had to figure out what else would be a better component for me. So I ended up getting this thing called Riverside. And now I use Riverside. So now I'm getting HD audio and HD video. I've helped them, give them a lot of like tips and stuff like that from a product side, of me building things and building big programs and software and things like that and designing them. And I've given them a lot of like tips because I understand what is in need for this production. And I've been on big sets of music videos and, A-listers and stuff like that. So I know exactly where it needs to be, but it's different when you're doing it yourself because you don't have those other hats to help you out and put everything together.
So we had, like I said, Justin's on our show with his girlfriend. We have 2 producers, and then Chase does clips for YouTube and TikTok and all that, and he's really good technically with computers. He built his own machines. And then Haley at school, Northern Michigan, Cindy's had on her shirt there, she got an internship credit at college to do social media. So like you said, you have to have other heads, you have to have other people helping you. And we would never be where we were if we didn't have a staff that had contributed. And Cindy and I understand business. So it's all a team. And then, but you do learn a lot from the other side as well. But that also makes it fun because you're doing it together. It's sometimes not always great to do it solo. So so there's never a dull moment.
No, totally. And I 100% agree. But I think the energy and the above and the God, that he's given me these experiences in these unique, situations to where I've been able to embody all these hats and smoothly just truncate it into something
awesome.
that's seamless. So pretty much to get recording, I'm 3 clicks away and I'm starting to record, and
that's very cool.
Grab my little drive, dump it into, my Mac, and then I go ahead and I do the color correction. Then I shrink the actual file down. Then I dump it over to my editor. Previously, I didn't have an editor, but I always thought of like, how do I make things more structural and just, process driven? And so now I've got things down to a smoother process. So I'm at 3 clicks. The goal is maybe to get her down to 2, down to 1. Right. And, and that is amazing. But by far what I've got going on here and doing this, and then you have to, and like you mentioned, David, about the business. I mean, I understand the business from doing businesses. That's a big portion. But right off front, you're not really doing that much, but you're also thinking about the branding. What is the visual branding? That's a whole nother job. How does the branding, the naming, the title, and the description, all that stuff correlates into a brand? So that's a whole nother perspective.
Well, I remember your logo. I remember a lot of logos, but I remember your logo, and you got 4 spaceships on there and behind the pyramids in the background, right?
Yeah.
So you did something that I remember.
Yeah.
And so that makes it
makes it more memorable. And I did that on purpose, being a person of product and branding. And kind of how the way I wanted to originally do it. And I didn't actually do the actual design. I came up with the design concept. Because I could have done it, but there's so many things that I can do. Do I need to do them?
Yes.
That's the thing. And so what I did is I just did like more of the visual production or guidance. I was like, hey, listen here. I look for a certain person who had a similar feel and vibe that I had in my mind. And I said, hey, look, this is what the feel that I'm looking for. And I found a person like that. You literally use Fiverr. And I went to a person who I saw had a similar style in my mind. And then I said, this is, all right, you look like you could, do the style that I want. But here's what I'm envisioning. And he was like, what? And I was like, so from a design and a product person vision, I'm thinking, it's going to be called The Kids in the Room. And so it's going to be kind of like I'm kind of like make a mockery of the kids. Who are the actual kids? Maybe it's the aliens. Maybe it's the Back to the Future spaceships, and maybe we're in the pyramids, right? And then I'm just there in the middle, then I have my mic, and then it's the podcast. So this is really where the theme came from. So it's like The Kids in the Room has no exact, theme of who the kids are. And if you see the lights coming down from the actual spacecraft, that's kind of me giving like this thing of like who's really kind of controlling the conversations. So that's kind of a play on that. So that's really where it came from. So I had those things.
So the lights on the spaceship is what's melting the blocks to go mold together on the foundation of the pyramid.
There you go. There you go.
For sure, aliens built that. I'm sorry.
There you go. The aliens. Did the aliens build it, or was it like?
Yeah.
Did you think the aliens built it? Do you think they built it? Tell me more.
I can't even fathom a man-made product at the end result. I just can't fathom it. And I know, people have explained to me the concept of, the building materials and things that I still can't conceptualize. The Mayan ruins or the pyramids or all of that is just, it's beyond my comprehension. And I'm always like, I'm a person that if you build a house, I think you're the coolest person on the planet because you figured out truly, like I am truly obsessed with people who can do plumbing and who can build and can like look at a empty lot and go, well, I think this wall is going to go here and that could, it just blows my mind beyond anything. Someone that can construct something out of nothing, out of wood, out of stone. So I just can't conceptualize back at that time period that there was the tools and the methodology that could men and women, or probably men, could even build that. So it has
There was
to be.
there's supposedly slaves who put the blocks together, right?
I can't.
But you're not even talking about the mathematical precision of how the pyramids line up to the 3 stars, as an
Right.
example.
And also the type of stones and things like that. I mean, I'll give you a kicker though too. I'll give you a kicker. I'll give you something to think about and throw a little bit of salt in there. But like, if people walked literally, if people walked in my studio right now and it was found, civilization was destroyed from the way we know it now. And, thousands of years from now, someone digs up this stuff and they're like, what the hell is this thing? Right. Sony, what is this? Right. What is this thing? It looks like it records people. How do they do these things? So what they think, since the beginning of what they've known, they didn't have that technology because maybe technology was destroyed and we're back from ground zero because not everybody's able to, carry on that technology and push it on to that next generation. But let's say we shake things up, destroy everything. Now everything's back to ground zero. Nobody remembers anything, and now we have to start all over. And so they look back, and now they find this other stuff, like these TVs. They find these speakers. Right. They find these Apollos. And they find all this stuff, and they're like, hey, but in the last hundreds of years, the people that we've known are just pretty much not that smart. How could they have done these things? Like, we can't even do these things yet. This is what we would say. So at some point, I think it's like, could it have not been people, or but my thing is, like, I believe like people did do it, but I do believe that possibly there could have been an extraterrestrial influence, right? An extraterrestrial influence, I'm collaborating.
I truly believe that,
to doing some of these things. But I mean, if you look back at it, you go back in time. I mean, most of Europe at the time when the Egyptians were at their highest was mostly in caves. It wasn't this civilized place to where everybody wants to go ahead and visit. The Romans were the ones that really kind of went in and civilized mostly all of Europe. They copied and pasted their system within Europe and modernized it. This is what really kind of pushed the structure, within Europe. But other than that, Egypt and certain places in the Middle East, those were like the highest places of civilization at those times. Ancient Mesopotamia. I mean, I just got back from Turkey, and I'm looking at these caves that are 80 feet down in the ground roughly, and these people were living there, and these are like thousands of years ago. So it's like, how are they living there? And then how do they pick these big stones? I'm looking at these ancient Byzantines.
They had nothing else to do.
Was that what it was?
I mean, nothing else to do, man.
When I have nothing else to do, can I pick up a stone? These stones are tons.
But time. Yeah.
But what are you doing? Well, I'm just kind of sitting out here in the desert. Why don't we just carve some blocks together?
No. Think about just the mass, the weight of the materials that they were hauling, moving, and building.
But maybe they had a different technology that we don't have now. Right? Yeah. Maybe they figured out something different than we didn't figure out yet. Maybe they figured out how to move larger objects, or maybe aliens helped them. Build some type of technology that knew how to move larger stones or larger objects that we have not figured out just yet. We have figured out the internet.
That is absolutely true, though.
Right.
Because we figured out things that people in the future may not.
Or just other countries. Other countries may have not even figured out certain things that we've figured out here. So it's like, it's really plausible that they could have figured out some ancient things with stones. I mean, one thing that I sit there and laugh about, and I'm going to be honest, I like to be real, is I make a kind of like mockery joke. I might have said it once or twice on my podcast recently, but I say, there's this theme that goes down with a lot of modern scholars where they say, or if you watch a lot of like Egypt stuff like that, and they'll say like, the first people to come to the Americas in general, they were like Christopher Columbus and et cetera. And we all know that, Leif Erikson was here, who was one of the Vikings, was here, 500 years before him. But then let's go dig in a part of that. Let's go dig back further than that. The Egyptians built pyramids, but yet they couldn't build ships.
Right. Yeah. Right.
This is a big conversation that you hear a lot of scientists go back and forth. Oh no, this person discovered the United States, But how did you get these Aztec and these Egyptian-like pyramids that look identical, and they're right across from each other? If you look at them actually on the board of the world, you can go diagonally right there.
Right.
So how do they do these things? You know, how do they become
they
similar?
Maybe they did an algorithm in the sand and realized that the odds of me dying building a ship going across the oceans is just not worth it, man. I don't want to risk.
Well, here's the thing: they did have ships because in Alexandria was one of the biggest, harbors at the time. So they did have ships, right? They found anchors and stones all under the ground. They found ships, but their biggest thing is that that's pushed them out is like they didn't really travel anywhere. Or they couldn't cross the ocean, and that's literally a joke. Like, are you kidding me? Like, how did these two pyramid-like things so far from each other, right straight across, were built? They're very similar in culture. Some things are variant, but they're very similar. How do they do it? And then you have things like the Olmecs, where they say they were pre-Mesoamerican, and then there's this argument, did they come from this Egyptian, Ethiopian area or not? Or were they the original people that were already there, just a different generation of them, and et cetera? So there's this back and forth thing of this. And it's like, at some point you have to think about it. It's like, are we really sitting here logically agreeing or thinking that the Egyptians can build these pyramids, but they couldn't build ships?
They couldn't build the boat.
No. The aliens helped them build pyramids, but they didn't help them build boats. They couldn't have done that. Yeah. Or maybe they had ships. Maybe they could just fly over there. You know, there's a bunch of stuff over there, Chile.
That's possible. Like we're very small, very not an old planet compared to what's out there. What we don't even know what's out there, and the universe always expands, right? So. Man, I know you could talk about this stuff all day.
It gets me freaked out because I just can't.
You can't fathom
my brain doesn't.
It just gets crazier the more you dig. And then if you start thinking about it in more in depth, you can start thinking about technologies and creatures or species or things that we can't even fathom that literally exist. In places we say things can't exist, even in ocean, there are living things that do within heats that we can't even fathom.
Things that live in the ocean are. Things that live in the ocean and the bottom of the ocean are definitely aliens. If you look at the transformation of the evolution of the things there's no doubt. I mean, I obsessively watch those programs.
You've seen an anglerfish, right? The anglerfish with the light.
Oh yeah, that's crazy looking.
Yeah,
it's a badass fish. And then we've only discovered 5% of the ocean's floor.
Correct.
So, yeah, exactly.
And I think I do think that with global warming that we might find discoveries that we've yet to see, especially when the ice melts in the mountains and structures and caves and things that we don't know yet. I don't know that I'm right, but I wouldn't be surprised if we come up with some discoveries of things that, at least might dating civilizations back to certain periods that maybe have more concrete evidence.
Yeah, man. Maybe that's what the whole, COVID's about, keeping people inside while they, try to ship everybody out because things are melting. You need to keep them inside so we can finish our construction.
I already have thoughts that just some days I'm like, Cindy, just stop.
I'm just saying, like, Cindy, I mean, and David, I mean, you can't, if something like this was to be real, let's say it's not real. Let's say we don't believe it. We're just hypothetically saying, what would it do in a place where there's humans, where you had like what was it, like 50 or 60 years ago, where they aired by mistake that it was, I think it was a War of the Worlds commercial where they were saying, hey, look, a War of the Worlds, and people really panicked and started going crazy. It's like, if you tell some people now that there's these other beings, that we're not alone, how will that affect religion, structure, government? People are going chaos.
Just look at Mark Zuckerberg. He's an alien.
Reptilian.
For sure.
If you want to be correct.
Reptilian.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's reptilian. He's for sure reptilian.
Yeah.
There was, what was it, Men in Black, when they were making fun of like Michael Jackson was on the screen. He's an alien. You never know. I mean
the moonwalk.
The moonwalk's pretty solid though. That was his, no one else had done. The guy could dance. Who knows? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all if people are among us that are not human, if you will. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. It really wouldn't.
Or maybe this,
and
right? Or maybe like this, David. I'm just going to say this before I know I interjected a second, but or maybe the aliens implant certain little people or little hybrids, you know, and they generationally watch them as they grow and help put them in certain positions.
For sure. Sometimes I think my oldest was an alien.
I mean, he might be, right? He might be.
We always joked that my grandparents were, for sure, not from this planet, for sure.
I'm
Like,
not
we're
sure.
like, I don't know where these people came
your
from.
parents either, Cindy.
Well, I'm a descendant.
But then
so
you
there
also got
go.
other theories though as well. If you're even talking about this, I know we went from finance to this, but you also have other
No,
theories.
this is good. I would way rather talk about this.
Right. I mean, there's other theories where they're like, you know, saying that, you know, I mean, there's so many different types of like humanoids that have existed on this planet priorly, and it seems like they've just been like erased and restart. You know, then there's people that think like, you know, hey, maybe there's been maybe this has been a playground or some ant farm for them just to test out different things. You know, maybe we're all just primates at one time and they just switched a couple of genes down.
Did you ever see the Planet of the Apes, the original? I mean, come on.
I did see the original Planet Apes, but I always had you know, before DNA got popular and all that stuff like that, I used to always say, like, who directed this? Because it seemed almost like a fear, an internal human fear that this would happen and that these apes would get smarter than us, and so let's just make a movie about it, or some type of belief that we believe, or whatever it may be priorly. But it does seem like it's believable. I mean, you know, most people on the planet do have a percentage of Neanderthal DNA if you ever took a 23andMe, you know, so yeah.
Yes, 4%.
I actually do.
Yeah. I mean, literally, if you have any ancestry outside of, you know, unless your family or your ancestors came directly out of Africa and never intermingled with anyone else, you have some Neanderthal DNA. Like I have like 1.7. So
I have 4%. David didn't have any. I have 4%.
What?
So
Cindy,
You have to
Cindy's
have.
like
I did.
Cindy's like out there
I'm
making
like
spears
super- I'm
and
like,
killing,
this
and
makes
she's
so
killing
much
rabbits and starting fires from scratch in the backyard all the time. It's like listen.
I grunt every now and again. I just answer with a grunt.
My biggest Neanderthal, you know, thing is like, you know, a easy tell is hair on the body. You know, hair on
You're
the
not
body.
talking about that with me.
Yeah,
so.
hair on the body, like because Neanderthals had hair over their entire body.
Yeah, for sure.
So the same hair on their head was on their entire body. So it wasn't something that was like hidden, you know. And people like in hot areas don't have that at all. You know, they're pretty much hairless. You know, but you notice that Neanderthals were very hairy. So when you see like hair on your palms, it's all like this.
Dude, I have to shave every morning. I mean, it's like
what you?
Crazy.
No,
my beard. You know? Every morning.
That would be weird though if you were Neanderthal and then the women also had beards and stuff. Wouldn't that be like? That'd be so wild.
It'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's so
I know.
wild.
I'm sure of it.
Beard. And imagine you had to be attracted to, you know, you had to be attracted to them with beards, and that'd be weird. You know, it's like, whoa. Now
Yeah,
if you
but that
did
was
that,
like how it was. So that
I think
would
we're
not
going
be
back there. We're going
abnormal.
back there. We're going back there. You know, we're going back there. It's happening.
Well, I mean, you know, what I can't understand is the male penis, like the genitalia, like that is like the weirdest. Like
he went from boobs to penis. There we go.
Well, like that because the women had, I guess,
I know what
beards and
David's up
breasts
to.
back then, right? And then that's what attracted them. And then maybe it's like a nature thing when you're a kid, right? And then you see as an adult and you look at a woman like a female Neanderthal and that's what you're going for. But the male genitalia just it makes no sense to me at all.
Really? In what way?
Well, it makes a lot of sense to me. But
There
Well, I
you
guess
go.
if it's large,
An appreciator.
It's just like
I said an
kinda hanging out
appreciator.
just like hanging out there and moving around. It's just like
okay, you're taking us in this really strange direction, David.
Hanging out there, move it around. Okay. Well, that's what we wear underwear for, David. We wear underwear to hide the moving around and hanging out.
When do you do that, David?
I work remote. I'm home all the day.
That is a new thing too,
I-
man. The whole remote working where you just get caught.
Oh my God.
And people are just like getting fired. Like I remember the first couple of months when that was, you know, a thing, and like people weren't used to it, and like so many people were getting fired. There's executives or caught recorded.
I know. I personally worked with a guy formerly, but they were on a HR call or HR benefits call, and he thought that the computer was off, and as soon as that meeting went, you know, everybody turned off, his camera was still on, and his assistant of like the last 20 years came in, and they show him, or he's unzipping his pants, and she's having fun, and it's all caught on camera.
Wait,
It was an
what?
HR
His assistant came
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, and it
Wow.
was an HR meeting with all the
Whoa.
leaders of the
Oh
conference.
my God! Everybody saw her jacking her
Everybody,
Daniels.
yes, everybody saw her having fun, and he was just like standing there.
Oh my!
And
Oh, man.
That's
I was
embarrassing.
cracking
got-
so
I
many
mean-
jokes. I was cracking so many jokes in that episode. I was like, he worked long and hard to blow his whole career.
How do you recover? How do you recover from that? Like, and
No,
what do
you
you
don't.
respond to?
You
He
don't.
don't. Well, he didn't.
no, he was married. He had children. He had a 30-year career. And,
Married
and-
with children.
and-
We're naming a lot of shows here. Okay. Rake.
Yeah, exactly. Married
Dancing with the
children,
Rakes. Married with
30
children.
years in the business, and that his stupidity with the camera. Like, I'm like, I always knew he was slimy. I knew it.
Ah, there we go.
Like-
Telepathy kicking
Like
in.
Yeah.
you can't wait. You can't wait 2 minutes. Like, nope, can't wait.
No, I
think
mean, he
it's
was
like
the-
the allure of it.
I mean, the whole meeting, he was like, "Oh God, can we get this over with?"
Like he's like, one more second. She's waiting in the wings, and yeah, I mean, I think that's part of like this whole concept of Zoom, that people are getting caught in the trap, is that it's like the excitement and the allure of it. Like, I'm gonna hang up this camera.
I don't think so. I think it's just
think
human nature that you've
stupidity.
had that habit for a long time, way before you were ever on Zoom or some video format, and like you do what you do because eventually your habits come out. It's kind of like when you date somebody. Within a couple months, the chinks are coming off the armor. Like if they're there, you're gonna start seeing them. Like you are who you are.
So
So
I mean,
and then the next.
okay,
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. In the next
Well,
one.
the next week there was the guy from CNN, and he
Yeah.
was tossing his salad on camera. The
Tossing-
very next week, I think, and now
Wait,
he
can a
actually
guy
just
toss his
heard-
own salad?
Technically, in the Urban Dictionary, tossing your salad is not that.
That's what I
No,
thought.
it's
right?
not.
I was
Well,
like,
he was.
That is
I
a
was just
whole
wondering
different
how
meaning.
athletic he was, David, for tossing his own salad. I'm like,
Yeah.
is this Marilyn Manson where he removed a rib? And like,
All right.
I don't know
Yeah,
what's
Yeah.
going on.
literally, you're like,
I'm gonna look that up, but
You know.
here's the, well, let's say he was I don't know, he was pleasuring himself.
Yeah, he was jacking his Daniels. There we go.
yeah.
There you go. Well, the second thing is why does Cindy know this answer?
You think I didn't study the Urban Dictionary at some point?
Exactly.
There is
exactly.
a lot of great stuff in there.
I mean,
Oh
I've
my
learned those
God.
things because people will say things to you sometimes, and you feel like
Oh.
an ignorant person out of
Yeah.
the conversation. You're like, oh wait, oh yeah, I know that. Then you walk
Yeah, I
out of the
know
room.
that.
I gotta go to the
Yeah.
restaurant. Be right back. Go.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
what
just
the-
looked it up.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly.
I just started laughing. I'm like, yeah, woo, toss salad. Yeah,
Yeah.
woo, man, that's hilarious. I'll be right back. 1 second, I gotta go to the restaurant, dude. Yeah, get one of those beers.
Yeah.
Woo, toss salad.
Yeah.
What's that? Oh, what?
Well, I just looked it up, so I get it now. I
Are
guess
we-
I used the wrong
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't
Pretty
seem like
bad.
salad though, right?
Right.
It never registered to me that I was tossing salad. I didn't get it.
Pretty sad I
That's
had
why
to
I had to
tell you
look it
that,
up.
David.
I mean, that when I grew up, that's what people called it. So I was
Really?
That's the five people I knew.
So
There
that
you
was
go.
the,
Yeah.
see you are the average of the 5 people you know the most. There you go, right there. They taught you the wrong
Look where it's
slang.
led me. Look where it's led me.
And then they had you going around thinking the whole time tossing salad was that, and you're walking around saying that. People are like, "What is he talking about? Who's
Yeah, and I
tossing
have
a
to tell
salad?"
you that now that's
David?
not what it means.
David, what kind of friends
I mean,
do you
they
have
use-
tossing salads?
Yeah, exactly.
David's like,
Oh,
yeah,
gosh,
when
I
I
guess-
was little, I tossed my salad. It wasn't a big thing. And all your friends are like,
Yeah, you
what
don't-
the fuck's up with David?
You don't want to tell people
Who are
that.
who are these people that you were with?
Your friends are different. They were tossing their salad. What kind of
Awesome.
place? Yeah, they would probably say, hey, David, I think you need to go in that door right there.
Yeah.
That's the door for you.
Where'd you
David
grow
didn't
up,
tell us
dude?
something else.
And there was like it wasn't a lot of light. I don't know.
But you know what? This is a funny thing because it brought me back to our previous convo, and it's kind of a comical one, and it's about like budgeting and finance. And it was like, I literally went on hanging out and saw some other buddies and stuff like that. And it was a late night, went to some bars and stuff like that. And they said, hey man, one of my buddies he had his wife and he was like, hey, why don't we go to a strip club? Nothing's open later. So he was like, yeah, cool. And I was like, yeah, I'm a DDD. I'm fine. I can drive. I don't drink that much alcohol or anything like that. We'll be fine. It's just like right next to the street. And I had maybe like 1.5. So we're good. And we get there and then we're hanging out. We're talking. His wife is just like she's rating different women. Guys, we're not supposed to do that these days. But his wife was, oh, she's a this, she's a that. Oh, she's this. Oh, she's cute. Okay, she's this. I'm like, wow, we can't do that these days. But as we were talking, there was one other stripper that was working there, and she just was telling us how she was just like getting this, this one guy who was like spending like within a grasp of 3 months, gave her $30,000.
What?
And I was like, what? And she was explaining and breaking down the mathematics of him blowing his cash to her. And I was like, yeah, he must be doing it for like a tax deduction, saying he's going out here for a business meeting with some friends, because that's just ridiculous. Like, when she was like, yeah, he wanted to marry me and all this stuff like that. But then I broke it off for him and broke it off with him and things like that. And then she kind of switched the whole plate around and said, hey, would you guys, would like to, to have a dance? And I was like, yeah, I'm not really into, losing my money. And she's like, well, it's, how much, what's your budget? And I was like, my budget? I said, it's not about the budget. It's not about my budget.
God.
It's not about that budget. It's how much money do I want to waste?
Yeah.
It's how much money I want to waste.
Money. Yeah.
That teed her off, because she was just like saying it the whole day. She was like, well, how much money do you want to waste? And I was like, well, I'm just being honest, because it's wasting. What are you doing with that?
Yeah.
This is not your wife. You're not future doing anything with this. It's like, you're just throwing it away. So how much money do you want to waste? Not what your budget is. Don't manipulate somebody with the, that's intelligent enough to pick that up to say, what's my budget? We're not building, we're not doing it. We're not investing anything. Like, come on. What are we doing here? This is waste.
When I walk away, I got nothing out of that. Other than maybe some, actually, that's not true.
Memory.
You might have something. It might itch later.
Yeah, you might have that. That's why you better get those checkups if you're going in there.
Right.
Somebody might, dance on top of you, and they might rub some whatever they were.
Yes, you don't want to know.
You never know. But not disrespecting any strippers out there.
No. We never.
We all
don't
love
judge.
you. We love everyone. Love strippers.
We do not judge.
There you go. But I just thought it was funny, because I just said, I was like, the word usage that she used was magnificent. She said, "What's your budget?" And I was like, "My budget." I said, we're not reverse psychologizing me with asking me my budget, because it's not really about my budget, because my budget would be different versus depending on what I'm doing. But this is not a budget thing. This is how much do I want to waste? And I said, how much do I want to throw away is what you're asking me. She said, no, but what's your budget? No. It's how much money do I want to waste? And I don't want to waste any right now, so I'm good. And
we went to the sporting goods store the other day to buy bikes, and the guy said, what's your budget? But we walked out of there with he was like, this is great, because they just bought really expensive bikes. But he said people come in and they don't know that you can buy a $200 bike or an $800 bike. But I just thought that just reminded me, because he was like, hey, what's your budget? But we walked out with something recreational that we can use. But what is not something that we have to put salve on?
But what do we? All right, let's dig into that whole terminology. What's your budget?
Right.
I get why people ask that, but at some point, is it more of not? I think it's a wrong sales tactic. I think it's not about your budget. It's getting something. Is finding out what the actual person needs. Right? And what would they desire?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, from a salesman's standpoint, that's what you want to do, because especially when you're selling something, if you're couth with it, if you will, you want to find out what they need, and you also would say, I think this is a good decision based on what you want, and then you talk money later,
right? And
because once they're sold on what they want, they're more apt to pay for it, rather than starting off by saying, well, what's your budget? I'm going to stick. I said it's $500. Well, I'm never going over $500, but yet I didn't know that I wanted that bike that's $700.
Right. I mean, because you don't know what the quality is of what you're getting. And like, do I need it? And is it something that I really want? But if you size somebody up immediately by a cold, what's your budget thing? And it's more of like this cold, I'm measuring you. It's really binary. It's like you don't have the money. How much money? It's more like a threat on your quote unquote, your manhood or your money or whatever you want to call it. And I think they try to trigger those things. Like, what's your budget? Insult you in some way. Like, oh, well, maybe if they tell me what's my budget, I'm going to spend millions of dollars here. No.
Right.
My
answer was,
that's my budget.
I don't have a budget. I just want something that's going to, so it turned out I bought a $500 bike when I went in for a $250 bike. I didn't care. I got what I wanted in the end. And that's, I think he was just like, oh, this is great.
He was 18. He was 18.
He was a great kid. No, he was awesome.
Yeah, we we might even start mentoring this kid. We liked him that much.
Yeah.
And
he was like very interested. Like, oh wait, you don't have a budget? You mean you can just spend whatever you want? Yeah,
But he was asking
because
all kinds of questions, and like, okay, so we like to help people. So I think this kid
He
was
was
worth it.
cool.
We kind of liked him a little bit more. You know, someone has a little thing in your mind about it. But he learned about that lesson of not asking what's in your budget, because he first said, I like to ask people that because I want to see what they can afford. And we said, no, what we just talked about here is what we told him. Like, nope, find out what they want, because let's go through this exercise together. And then, yeah, he probably thought we were going to spend $600, and we spent more than double that. I don't know. I don't even know what the bill was.
I mean,
but
Well, after I got my Nike bag and my little cup holder, it was like whatever, $1,200.
I just find it's uncomfortable when you put that, you know, on the table. What's your budget? It's very like cold.
Well, it's a little
transactional.
condescending.
Yeah,
you know?
it is. It is condescending.
Yeah.
So it turns things from positive to just negative, and it's
Yeah,
very
and
transactional.
actually, that's an interesting point, because I was looking at the whatever it was, and that was $280, and then I was looking at the Schwinn, and that was $499. I wanted the Schwinn. I didn't care. Like I want something that's going to be built to last. But I think you're right, is that he immediately assumed like, oh, maybe she can't afford the Schwinn, so I'm going to ask her budget. Now, if I go in and I'm looking at a Schwinn and it's $499, guess what? I know I can afford that. That's why I'm looking at it. So you don't need to go cross that boundary with me, because I'm looking at it because I can walk out with it with no problem. So maybe that's, you know, that's where, again, he was a young kid, not a stripper, but like,
But
know,
I just find people do that consistently throughout life. I mean, I just use that one
Yeah.
example of that because that recently was another one that brought up that budget stuff. And I
But
don't
you
like
know
when
why,
people do
though,
that.
right?
It's
You know
annoying.
why?
Well, they're trying to sell you something more than you don't need, and that's the problem, because you are a brand. So literally, once you lead
Right.
by that, that's exactly what that last person's gonna, you know, you're gonna have buyer's remorse after they left. They're like, dude, why did I buy this? You need to lead with what the quality is of whatever that you just purchased or you might
Right.
purchase. Like, this is why you should buy this, and this is why this has this. These are the options of this. You might not really need this, but if you really care about this, this is what you would want this. What colors do you like? You know, what style do you want?
Right.
Do you want this right
Right.
here? This will be the best fit for that. This is a little bit more expensive. You know, you might not want to spend it, but this is what it's cost, but it has
But
this and has
this
this
is
and
what
has this.
it's going to offer you if you're buying, you know, the hybrid, the tires, off-road, on-road, weekends, you know, regular, whatever. But yeah, that is an interesting
Selling what you
concept
need.
of that.
Selling what you need,
Yeah.
not selling something that people don't need, because you will create a bad reputation because you just want to sell how much you want to make off somebody. And that's the wrong
Right.
thing, because, you know, I'll come back and I'll buy more because you were the person who led me with the knowledge of like what I
Right.
wanted. You customize it for me versus you just said, hey, look, what's your budget? All right, so buy like this
Right.
$2,000 bike that I'm never even going to ride. And now it's just sitting in the living room, dusted off. And I'm like, why did I do this? I'm never going back there again. So now I'm never going to go in there, because every time I go in there, you want to ask me what my budget is. And I
Right.
don't have time for that. I just want to know what's best for me, not my budget. I know my budget.
Yeah,
I'm not telling you
that's
what's
so
in my
true.
pocket.
That's totally true.
Yep,
Yeah.
that is a good point. Yeah. I think the only thing I'll say on top of that is that the one thing we talk about on our show a lot is when you buy something, you want to get the quality out of it. It's like, so don't buy a piece of crap. So like Cindy is notorious for buying like cheap rugs. She always talks about this. And then I'm like, why did you buy this cheap rug? It's gonna fall apart after you know, put it in the wash once or whatever. And you know, that was a thing for a while. And now she's given so many rugs away. But it's the concept of when you buy something, why are you buying it? And if you even have to wait longer to buy it to get a good quality product, that's more important than buying something that's less expensive, because over time you're going to probably keep buying that thing over and over and spend more money in the long run as if you just paid up front or waited to pay for that product that has a quality standard and to what you want, you know, out of your net satisfaction. And that's the winning formula.
Oh no, totally. And like I've tell this to my buddies sometimes as well when we even talk about cars, and they'd be like, okay, you know, when you bought this car, did you get it this way? Did you get it this way? Oh, which one did you get? Did you get the X6 or did you get the X7 or did you get the 5? And I'm like, hey man, listen here. I'm like 5'9". I don't need an X5. If I'm hopping out the X5, I look like a smidget. Okay? Do you understand what I'm saying? I understand, you know, we needed to do things within proportion. I needed to get out a car that's proportional to me, and it has the values and things that I like. So if I'm going for a BMW, I'm going to go for the one that's best for me, not just for one because of the number, because that's not the thing. And I'll get it fully loaded. That's fine. But I'm not going to go ahead and put myself in a situation where I look like a smidget jumping out of the car. You know, it looks like I have like some compensating issue.
I love that.
I mean,
well, I'm 5'6", and I have a
go.
Q5 Audi. I'm not buying a Q7 because don't like you said, I'll look like that, or we don't need that size of a car.
No,
and
you
it's
don't.
Not about it's not about affordability. It's about I want the car that I want, what works for me.
Right, and does it
Same
look?
thing.
Does it? But at some point, what I'm saying is like aspect ratio. Do you look like somebody who's getting out of? If the car looks like, you know, it looks like somebody who's like 7 times taller than you gets out of it, and you're getting out. You see this big car, and you see this person get out of it, and they're like,
it's
what
proportionate.
the hell? He looks like he needs a stool to get out of it. Like, what is he doing? What are you overcompensating for, buddy? It's okay.
That's what our son Chase says. Like, go to Costco and you find all the suburban housewives who can't park the Suburbans.
Yeah, it's too big for them. You don't.
That's
need
why I
that.
will not get one.
They're like the Escalades. They can never park them right. It takes them 3 times just to get into the space.
Yeah. And for all those out there, smidget is something I say personally to myself if I'm not that tall. So I'm calling myself that, right?
No, I love that. I've never heard that terminology.
Yeah. So I can call myself this because this is what I feel like I am.
Yeah.
I just feel like that. I feel like I'm not proportionate with what I'm getting out of. And it's not a point of not being tall or not being shorter or being too tall. It's the point that I want to get something that's proportional to me. I wouldn't get a shirt that's an XX large if I'm not an XX large. It looks ridiculous on me. I look like a kid running around with a shirt. Who took your daddy's shirt, buddy? You got a problem? What's going on? I want to wear something that's proportional for me. I see sometimes some people, women or whatever you want to call, that will wear like these high heels, and they're like 6-inch heels, and then they're like 5 foot or 4'9". It's like, that's awesome. You did that, but your arms are really short, and now your legs look ridiculously tall. Now you're looking like T-Rex. T-Rex is kicking in right now, and so. Guess what? Guys, we actually subconsciously look at things that are proportional. And if we see T-Rex running around here, it's like, hey, is that reproducible? I mean, it's cool if you want to do that, but my kid might come out with little shorter legs and arms, and we don't think about the reproduction value.
When she falls over, she can't get back up.
There you go. Exactly.
That's why we never had kids together. When we met, I mean, we could have had kids, and we're like, our kids are going to be stocky and short. This is not going to be good. So
sometimes, is that bad sometimes to do that? I think we get like in society, it's just like we get like, oh, that's wrong. You shouldn't say this. You shouldn't say this. But, subconsciously we're doing these things. We're judging things that compliment or that don't compliment.
Right.
And I think some people aren't as aware of these things. They just don't know it and they don't see it, and they might figure it out later when somebody mentions it. But it's like, I think it's about self-awareness. It's like, hey man, is this what we kind of look in society? I think society sells us proportions, and when things don't look proportion, we mention it. If we see a car with really long doors, it looks weird to us. We're like, hey, why are the doors so long? It doesn't look right. I don't know. It's kind of ugly to me. We'll say something. We will mention it. So it's like, why not say those about other things that we care about, or that we want to buy? I mean, it's your own personal opinion. I'm not saying that you should judge people on it, but that's just their opinion, and I'm not discriminating on it, but it is what it is. So that's what I've noticed, proportions matter sometimes.
You're totally on point there.
But some people like unproportions, I mean, David said he likes bigger things, and salads, and I don't know. Some people like things hanging around. I don't know.
I like a lot of accoutrement in my salad.
There you go. I mean, so some people don't like. I guess it's customizable to what you like, right? And I think for me, I
think my hope maybe that all in all, it's what you want with what you're comfortable with. And if you're cool with who you are, then it shows that way in any form of life, the way you look, dress, feel, act, engage with people, carry out your business, whatever. If you're like, I'm 5'6", I'm not a big guy. I'm okay looking. I mean, I always had a good build. I had some tools, but no, I'm walking in the bar, man. I'm not the first guy to get looked at. They don't even see me at the bar to get a drink. Like, where are you? You know what I mean? But I learned to be, I learned to have charisma, and I learned to be, I think, a little witty and funny enough in those areas, and not too bad looking. And I got by. And then I don't think that I'm 5'6" unless I talk to somebody who's taller than you, which happens a lot. And then you get reminded, or I can't reach the third shelf on there gets a little,
Yeah.
Sometimes
like,
we have We have 9-foot we have 9-foot ceilings though, so it's hard to get to that third shelf sometimes. But I think that's the key in anything in life, because everybody judges in some shape or form. I don't care who you say. In your quiet house, you're looking at shit on TV and you're looking on social media and you're.
But we pretend like we don't. We pretend like people don't judge.
Right.
This is the new thing. Pretend like people don't judge, and it's wrong if you say something and you judge because you shouldn't judge, or you're marginalizing this group or that person, etc. But people judge, and it's like, we got to be real.
Yeah, and I think I think it just transcends who you are. If you're real, people usually see it. Like when Cindy and I go out in public, and we're very engaging, and people like us and they want to talk to us, and it's not a mistake. We're not putting on a show, but people, they gravitate towards us because we are real, and we don't have to hide anything or put on that show. We are who we are, and we're going to be ourselves. And I think I'm glad that I can feel that way about myself. I'm not saying that I don't have any hangups, but at this stage of my life, I'm glad I'm pretty good at where I'm at, because otherwise I'd probably be screwed because I'm too old.
And Cindy, I actually heard smidget from a high school friend. She used to say that. She used to say that about people who weren't really tall, like guys she would date. She was, oh, he's like a little smidget, and I was like, oh yeah, well, I'm a smidget.
I love that.
I guess I'm a smidget then. I guess I'm a smidget. I'm smidget
Nice.
style or whatever. I'll own it. I don't care. But I mean, and I'm only comparing that, and I'm only saying that because like most of the time people consider somebody tall. I only say that because I feel like people say that when you're not very tall, because we have this thing in the Western world where height is based off of or tallness is based off of 6 feet tall. And if you're under that, or you're not exactly like 2 inches closer to that, you're considered short. And so people will tell you, very well, hey, you're not tall, or you're short, or you're shorter, or you're not that tall, or things like that. You'll go through that, especially being a guy, I feel like, through life. I don't know if women go through that, but definitely guys go through that. But I agree with you, David.
I don't think
You guys don't go through it. Nobody.
David could attest to that.
I mean, Sydney didn't care. Everybody I dated in life was actually taller than me, for example. But the two people I married were shorter.
Right. And so this brings up on a new conversation. I feel like this is the next part of the last ending of the podcast, and it's called, does size matter? I mean, does size matter in height? Does it matter in a lot of different things? And it's like small things, big things come in smaller packages, right? Isn't that right, David?
Flex it.
There you go. They don't even know. Yeah.
They don't know.
I mean, I'll tell you, when we met and I was sitting on the bar stool and I turned around and he's like, I'm David, because we were meeting up, and I knew he was short because I turned around in the bar stool and he was like eye to eye with me, and I'm like, that's odd.
That tends to happen to us sometimes if we're not that tall. Yeah.
Eye to eye with me, and I'm on a bar stool, so that means he's probably pretty short. I can say, and this is not a mystery, I married him, but he's the shortest guy I've ever dated, right? But so size does not matter in that regard.
But what is it, Cindy, that we're this like why does height matter sometimes to some women? Like what, like do you know, like what is the inside story? Because I mean,
it's interesting because it didn't matter to me. I just never was in the situation that I was attracted to or dating.
But is it something that's like, is it some kind of like pushed into like, like, because I feel like, because like if you think about it, like you said you never dated somebody that was shorter, like, but I always look at things as like, why? Was it something maybe your peers, your friends, or society at some things? Was that,
I can tell you, like, I can tell you just purely from women that I've spoken to,
right,
that say, I want somebody that is bigger and stronger, that can like sort of pull me in, and they can be that, just like taller, bigger, stronger figure. So I mean, there's women that have told me that, like, I could never date somebody my height because I need this image of strength around me.
For what? Is this like some type of protection thing, like from caveman?
Yeah.
Still lingering around?
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Like,
still
pull
lingering
you
around
by the hair and drag you kind of thing.
And we don't like that pulling by the hair kind of guy anymore, right? We learned from that. We don't need that. Right? So
no, but I do think that that's a weirdly innate thing that, women, that goes back, right, to caveman time.
I think it goes back that far. Yeah.
Right? It goes back far. And I think that's just like the evolution that didn't necessarily evolve, and that was this innate thing that men should be big and tall and strong and go out and plow the field and cut the wood, and women are in the kitchen. So unless you've sort of gotten over that, I think that's still a very prevalent thing inside people. That's it wasn't for me. David's personality took over immediately. Like we clicked. It was the pheromones were just like raging between us. And I had dated a ton of people, and he had dated a ton of people prior to hooking up. It was like,
David, did you drop some pheromones in her drink?
Yeah.
Did you do it?
She liked this. Well,
shorter people are smarter, right?
She just had enough drinks to start, so I didn't have to play that move. But
okay.
But in the beginning, she liked my armpits. Like she's laying in bed,
truly.
and she's like, I love your smell. I'm just so into it.
Right.
And it was disgusting. Right now, it's disgusting.
You didn't put on that pheromone cologne or anything? You didn't Bill Cosby up your cologne or anything? I mean...
So listen, I got to personally brand. So we're getting back to that. But I will tell you that there's a picture in our I guess it's when we got married. We just hang in our garage. It's a big poster board. And we were early on dating, and I picked her up in a bowling alley and threw over my shoulders. Like just like nothing.
He was holding you like a barbell.
And I still got some good build. I'm not like a wimpy guy. But I'm not like huge, but I'm built.
Right. We don't have to be. Right.
No, not at all. I'm cool with it. But I think she realized, wait a minute. And then if I pull any tools out and start working on crap, and there's the third thing, which is going to help you right now, is that for Cindy is like when I put my hat on and I wear it backwards, it's like automatically, even if I've been a dick that day, I am no longer a dick. I'm now attractive.
Right. No, totally. I mean, but do you ever have as David where like, because I've noticed some people that are, that are a little bit shorter than the Av, they have like this Napoleon complex where they feel like they need to like show their strength everywhere they go. I have some friends that are, they're rocking the 5'5", and they're just like, feel like they need to be tough. They're walking around like this, and they look like
they look like a
chihuahua.
washing machine when they walk, right?
Yeah. They look like a mean chihuahua or a mean pit bull, and it's like, dude, what are you doing? Relax, bro. It's okay. Enjoy being short. It's not a big deal. Like seriously.
That's what I appreciated about David. He never made it an issue. He's never felt like that, like he had to prove himself in any other way because he was shorter than the average guy. And so, you're attracted to who you're attracted to. It's too bad, like, that women do have this notion that they have to be with somebody bigger and stronger, because frankly, that's not always the best guy on the block. And, I couldn't be happier with the man that I married and ended up with after what I left and swore I would never, ever marry. Like, never was I going to marry again. I looked up, to the higher power, and I'm like, I don't need a man. I got my kids. I got my dog. I got my, I'm starting to dig out. I believe that or not. And then I met David 2 weeks later, like after I declared, like, there's no man out there that is going to take care of biz for me.
Wow. Isn't that powerful?
I didn't want it.
Yeah.
I wasn't interested.
That is amazing. But, there's also a thing too, as well, as like even I have guys, all right, I'm going to bring out guys because guys do this too. Right. I have guy friends that be like, oh, I don't want to date a girl who's taller than me. And they're like, I'm like, really? What's the problem? I don't care if a girl's taller than me. She can be model. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. I don't have a subconscious, inferiority problem where I feel like, oh my God, she's taller than me. Oh my God, I couldn't date her. I'm like, doesn't bother me. I don't care if somebody's shorter than me or too taller than me. I just like actually I have like an average around about like not too shorter than me, but not too much taller than me, but in a solid range where it's within 4 to 5 inches up or down. Right. And that's kind of my range. And it's more for my excuses for back support issues,
Right.
Hey, dude, if you want something, just climb up and get what you want. That's what I say.
Right.
Like my friend who literally dated the girl who was 6 feet tall and he got on top of the bed with his sneakers. Yeah. That guy. Yeah.
Little lifts it is. Yeah.
I always make that joke. I was like, dude, what are you doing, bro? Come on. That's a little bit bigger. That's a lot. Like, what are you doing? I was like, I got to do it, dude. I was like, all right, whatever.
Oh, my God.
You have to put down for the team. You have to put it down for the team. Sneakers and all. I get it. But, awesome. I don't know. I just, like, I know, like, some guys or a lot of guys don't want to date girls that are taller than them, And so it's like the opposite thing from what you hear a lot of women say.
Yeah. Actually, my daughter is well, she says she's 5'8", but I swear she's 6 feet, and most people say it. But she said, I walk into a room and I know that people are intimidated by my height.
Wait, how
And
tall is she?
I think she's she's like 5'8",
Yeah.
but she looks taller. Like, I don't know what it is. Everybody thinks she's like over 6 feet.
Is she really like thin?
She's tall and thin, right?
Yeah,
so,
that makes you look taller.
And so she's constantly saying that, like, she just thinks people are intimidated by that. Like, guys just unless they're way taller. I think that it's just, she has a presence when she walks in the room. She's beautiful. She's tall and thin, and not that that's what you have to be beautiful. I'm just saying she's my daughter.
Right. And you also hear people say things like, there's also the excuse like, oh, I want tall kids. And it's like,
right, which is weird.
I mean, but let's think about this. It's really like, you could be a shorter person and then your brothers and sisters should be all tall. You could just been the one who just wasn't tall.
Exactly. No, David's the shortest one in his family.
That was me.
Right. But people automatically assume that everybody's short because you're not that tall. And that's not really reality a lot of times. So.
Well, we didn't have kids because we said they're going to have big noses and short bodies. So, just going to pass.
No, I get it. I mean, you have to make an assessment of what you kind of want. I think that goes back into knowing what you kind of want and, being self-aware. Yeah. And if you make that decision up, then what's the problem with that? I mean, we're all adults.
We married later in life, so we probably would have had kids had we met earlier on.
I'm pretty sure.
It was a good excuse anyway.
Yeah. I mean, these are great things. But yeah, man, I mean, it's been great having you guys actually on the show, have lots of laughs. Could you tell the audience more about where they can, reach you guys at and your podcast and things like that?
Absolutely. Our website's somethingonmymind.net. For our social media, we're on all platforms. I think all of them should be on somm.podcast. We've just started doing TikTok now, so now we got to integrate with that in life. And any media outlet in terms of the podcast, it's called Something on My Mind. And other than that, I think that'll get you somewhere if you want to go dive into it.
And why did you guys choose Something on My Mind?
I actually came up with that. We were trying to come up with in retrospect, I wish it was a little bit different, but I think one night we were just sitting around trying to come up with the podcast name. I'm like, you know what? I don't know. Like, I always have something on my mind. I always have something I want to talk about. Something's always on my mind. And David's like, you know what? I think we just have to go with that. So it doesn't necessarily speak of finance, but it's not all finance. We've interviewed some great people. We've covered a diverse amount of topics. So, it's
a hybrid. We BS in the beginning for the first 5 or 6 minutes, whatever's random. We do the finance piece, and then we find a relatable story or something human interest, and it's all with humor. And so we're not your normal format, but that's why, there's a $sign and the S on our logo, but it's like if we would have named it Something Finance, we probably show up on some of the searches better, but that's not what we were trying to do. And so, I guess it's overall, it's primarily finance, but it's a hybrid. And so, that's why on this show with you, we've talked about a lot of different things because we can, and that's what we like to do.
Well, that's what the Kids in the Room is about. It's about talking about different things that are in the room as we did like as kids, just a couple people just chatting and being honest and transparent and having a good time. And,
I love it.
Talking about one topic, but, sometimes you don't want to make it too serious, right?
No, that's why. Absolutely. That's why I like to talk about our last roundtable about the guy picking his nose in the back of in my rearview mirror. I'm like, who does that? And then whatever.
Then I brought up the Seinfeld episode, and we pulled the video up during the podcast, and it's like he's picking in the side of the taxi, and he's like, "It's not a pick. It's not a pick." And a hot girl won't date him because she thought he was picking his nose, but it wasn't true.
Exactly.
But that shit happens in life. So
I mean, we've got a lot of nose pickers around here. I mean, I've seen living in the Silicon Valley area, I've seen little kids just run around and they're on their little buggies and they're just digging their nose, the whole finger up and wiping it on the boxes. I'm like, hey, you gonna let that kid do that? You gonna let that kid do that? No, come on, I'm gonna touch the Wheaties. He's like smeared his name on it in Sanskrit.
No, the key to the conversation we had is the guy that I was looking at in my rearview mirror ate it.
I'm done.
That was the gnarly.
Check
So we're gonna just end right there. We'll leave you with that.
All right, guys, you heard that first. We've got David and Cindy on the podcast, and we just talked about some amazing stuff. We talked about finances, how to get your stuff together. We also talked about aliens. Ooh. And then we also talked about relationships. We talked about strip clubs. We talked about buying bikes. We talked about a bunch of cool stuff. A lot of fun conversations from David and Cindy. And don't forget to check out their podcast as well. Guys, show some love. All right. Thank you guys for coming on. Just hang on for a couple of minutes. We got to make sure everything is uploaded because we want this beautiful conversation to be uploaded and seen by the millions. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Anytime. So just hang on.
It's an honor.
No, it's definitely an honor. Same, likewise. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Kids in the Room podcast. The Kids in the Room podcast.
That's right.
Brought to you by Moo Faces TV. Let's go.